Welcome to the Independent Characters, episode 237. This is Carl.
This is Josh.
And we're joined by very special guest, Dan Boyd.
What up?
The one, the only.
Chaboy.
Dan, you join us from
40K Badcast fame, if you're not aware.
That's
if
right.
you're not aware, you need to be aware also.
Yeah. I'm a fan. I'm a patron of the Badcast.
Everybody should be. We're the second best Warhammer podcast out there after y'all, so get at it.
Let's combine forces and be unstoppable.
You actually have more Warhammer 40K content. I agree with your last episode. You said that. More 40K content on the Badcast these days. But
well, that's we're just trying to have some fun over there.
I'll tell you what, not this episode. I got a lot of 40K content this episode.
Oh yeah, that's why you guys brought me. It's funny. I know we're not talking about a lot of 40K right now. We're going to be, as will be revealed, talking about a different game.
We already know.
But like I'm in like a total 40K mode right now because I'm in my prep period for the Nova Open, which is Labor Day weekend this year. So I am like locked in on painting 40K. So it's perfect that I'm here to not talk about 40K.
Dan, I will be there.
Oh, you will?
Yes. I will be there repping Table War Charities and manning the booth there and helping out Todd, because I'm on the board for that.
That's amazing news because I really missed you at Adepticon this year.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to say I missed everybody, and I did, but Australia was pretty awesome. So.
I heard you had a ton of fun. So
I did. All right. Well, as you alluded to, this episode we are covering. This is one of our Underhive factions coverage, and we are covering House Orlock this go around, which is why we brought in Dan. And I'll probably mention several times, but clearly he modeled for the cover of House of Iron, the Orlock. Every time I look at that book, I am like, God, that really does look like Dan.
Yeah.
You lucky.
Yeah. I'm disappointed to not see you in your Adepticon jacket, yellow shirt, bandana. Missed opportunity.
Actually, I don't. I think I threw that yellow shirt out.
Probably a good choice.
But and I don't know where the bandanas are or the goggles. Actually, no. I think the goggles might be in the costume box in the closet behind me. But I did dress up last year at Adepticon. For 2023, I did dress up for the Necromunda event that my co-host Campbell and I went to. I did dress up as an Orlock for that, which was a lot of fun.
And so nobody thinks there's going to be any drama. Dan, you've mentioned on your show that you're pregnant again. Well, not you, but your wife is pregnant again. And,
yes.
And so you guys are going to kind of step away from doing the podcast for a little while you get situated with the new baby once that happens in October.
That is correct. We'll be. I'll be just putting basically everything on hiatus for a few months as we figure out how to have a toddler and an infant. Mm-hmm. So
I have no clue. I just had one.
You got your hands full.
Yeah. So we invited Campbell because he loves podcasting to come kind of take a seat here while you guys are on hiatus. But we sought your approval ahead of time. We're not trying to poach Campbell, even though we would.
Oh, I mean, listen, if Campbell wants to leave the Badcast for the greener pastures of the independent characters, I would say vaya con Dios. I get it. I understand.
No.
We can only make so many. I think it's rated R jokes about a certain building in Des Moines, Iowa. Real ones know that maybe he wants to work a little clean these days.
Think so.
Interestingly enough,
I don't think he's capable of that much content.
I brought a beverage. As you'll notice, last time we were here, Campbell and I were gripping and ripping. But in the interest of keeping it PG-13, I have brought a LaCroix this time. So
that's interesting because Josh and I.
You know what? Just for you, Dan.
Just for you.
We are gripping and ripping. I got beer in here in my Sasquatch koozie.
I have a super dry Asahi.
Ooh, very nice.
Which is the Formula One club I am part of. It's called Formula One Club Asahi.
Nice.
Mispronounced intentionally.
That can sounded dry.
And I got to tell you, I'm not usually a beer guy, but I do like this beer. So.
Yeah, I'm apparently a bad influence, but also I'm not because I'm drinking LaCroix this recording.
Well,
so it's not on me; it's on y'all.
Let us down already. Okay.
Yeah.
The first thing we want to do is we want to thank our patrons, Ben McConnell and Big Dre. Big Dre. Probably not his real name, but we want to send you our appreciation for backing us through our Patreon. We absolutely need it at this point.
Yeah. We need it. We're desperate. We appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
And Dan, I don't know if you know, but we are the Independent Characters is now part of the Goonhammer Media Network as well as you guys.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we got reached out to.
Will you be posting new episodes on the Goonhammer main page?
We sure will. They'll be up there. And so you can check out media.goonhammer.com for more shows and information, that kind of stuff. And we may even release some
both audio and YouTube links available there if you want to listen or watch.
And we may even,
there's a lot of really good shows affiliated with Goonhammer these days. There's a couple of really good Kill Team podcasts that people should check out, especially those who, like me, are, dads or moms or parents or whatever, who don't have time for long games.
Yeah.
Kill Team can fit perfectly right into that little niche there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so we're there. I think we fill a kind of narrative niche.
Mm-hmm.
There. So cool. And again, this episode, we are doing a deep dive into House of Orlock. And since Dan, again, was on the cover and is a resident expert of the gang. Now, just out of curiosity, did you pick the gang? You picked the gang prior to the cover coming out.
Yes. So when Necromunda 2017 dropped, I did not necessarily know which way I was going to go until I saw the Orlock models, and I absolutely fell in love with them. In old Necromunda, my gangs were Redemptionists and Spirers.
Okay.
When Necro 17 dropped, they didn't have Redemptionists or Spirers. They still don't have Spirers. So I was like, well, I gotta go somewhere else here. And when I saw my beefy boys with mutton chops and handlebars and their leather vests and everything, I was like, oh, it's my people.
So
my people are here.
When House of Iron came out and you saw the cover, you had to be like, wait a second.
Dog, my
kind of looks
DMs,
like
my DMs exploded that day because let me grab it real quick.
It's amazing.
Camera.
Yeah. It's amazing. For those of you who don't know, on the cover, Dan bears a striking resemblance to I begged Aaron Dembski-Bowden to create a space marine named Carlos Tutulus, and he said that was the stupidest name he'd ever heard.
Yeah, so the lighting here isn't so great, but you can, it's me.
It's all right. We got
in the center is me.
We'll put up a picture.
It's wild. My DMs exploded. Everybody's like, well, how did they get your... Did you license your likeness for this book?
That's so funny.
It's Kismet or something, man. It's my
meant
gang
to
now.
be. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, let's do this. Why don't we leap right into our elite choice choices for this go round, and I'll go ahead and go first as soon as I straighten out my technical issues here. And for me, I decided, in keeping with our theme of the show, and in recognition of how many times Brett Barker has posted Necromunda terrain in his posts on our Facebook group, I just wanted to recognize that this terrain and the photos he takes of it are phenomenally thematic.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It's an incredible table, beautiful photography, so moody, so dark. Love the vignettes.
So moody.
Now, has Brett, are these all glued, constructed tiles that he's created, or has he kept it modular?
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm
pretty sure from what I've seen, it is glued. This is the setup.
My experience with these terrain kits are they say it can be modular and you can stick it together and take it apart or whatever, but you really can't.
Yeah.
They're just too light. They move around too well.
Yeah.
So I think this is gorgeous. So I think he's done a fantastic job.
It's just stunning. And it's so it's just super thematic. And I recognize that some of that is the photography that he has done there, but man, it's incredible. It's incredible.
It's an incredible board though. Yeah. I would love to play a game on this board.
For sure. Yeah, without a doubt. Josh.
I'd want to bring a dice tray along.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I feel like my dice would get lost in all those nooks and crannies, but
and it's going to be loud.
Great, yeah.
There was this table at Warhammer World for a while. I don't know if it's still there, where it had multiple levels, and it was kind of like inside a factory or a mining facility or something, and you could lose dice like way down in the table. It took forever to get them out if you dropped them down there. So.
Yeah, I got a buddy named Dylan Gould, 40K Ham Slam on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's on your Patreon, but he is on ours. And he's got this amazing setup. His house in actually his barn in Massachusetts. He calls it the Ham Barn, and he's got a similar situation where he's got these like multi-level, beautiful, custom-made terrain pieces that if you don't bring a dice box and you try to roll on the board, you kiss some of them dice.
Kiss yeah. Well, what about you, Josh?
Good luck. Yep. So I went with a Mark Kilburns. This is a counts as Skeeth Hyrule. This is a Gene Stealer cult. Kind of.
Did you say Skeeth?
I think he means scythe.
Yeah, I think he means scythe.
How do we say Skeeth? I know. Scythe.
Yeah, the Grim Reaper's Skeeth over here.
Skeeth. It's pretty intimidating when you say Skeeth instead. Yeah, like it's good for reaping souls. So the Scythe Hyrule is obviously a larger Tyranid. That's the mini Titan. It's not the full on Titan, right?
Yeah.
It's like their knight equivalent. But anyways, he has done an incredible job of representing something with scale in this mining vehicle that he's constructed. I think it's a Baneblade base. And then,
it's a Goliath.
And then we have
head on it. Yeah, Goliath truck top.
Yeah, it's like, is that a Torox or a Goliath?
It's a Goliath.
Yeah.
Or Rock Grinder or whatever.
Got plasma generators on the back of it. We've got exposed engine parts. We've got vents. We've got doors, hatches. It's just a really cool. Not only is it a cool vision, but it's just great execution and an amazing kit bash. Lots of plastic card on there, green stuff.
Mm-hmm. You know what this reminds me of? Jason the Wheeled Warriors. Do you, Carl? You're probably
that was a cartoon, right?
Yes, maybe a little aged for that, but
yeah.
When I was a kid, there every now and then we'd catch one of those on the like Saturday morning cartoons, and I always thought they were cool. This reminds me of that.
It does kind of.
The giant crane on top. We've seen a couple other people in our community that are doing Gene Stealer cult mining vehicles. And the two of them, I'm blanking on the other guy's name, but they were actually, I think, commenting on this post. But just something about bringing that kind of the Gene Stealer cult mining vibe to life, and it's such a big scale. Like it's just a really cool envisioning, and I can't wait to see this thing painted up.
Yeah, that's just what I was gonna say.
Is Mark going to put a giant saw on the crane rig there, like one of those big dredging machines?
That would be amazing.
Yeah, you either need like a claw dangling off a chain or a giant like just buzzsaw blade. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure which, but one or the other has to happen.
Well,
but
Mark definitely has the conversion chops to do it.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of cool rigging too. Like they're using it almost looks like shoelaces, but it's made to look like the cables and chains to actually actuate the crane, hydraulics, and things like that, along with the pistons that are modeled out of that terrain kit. For me, it was just a really cool. There are multiple tank kits in here. There's multiple terrain kits, and then it's really re-envisioned into its own thing, which is really unique.
You know what else is in here? Multiple dollars.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is a pricey conversion, man.
Well, this could be eBay rescues,
that's true,
or Bitsbox rescues.
That's true,
because it doesn't look like none of the kits are complete here.
That's true.
So Mark could have gone bargain hunting here, which
that's what I would always. Impressive. That's what I would always do with kit bashing stuff if you can help it.
Yeah.
Well, it looks awesome. Dan?
Yeah. Job well done. Can't wait to see more.
Dan, you are not you are famously not on Facebook, so you're not.
No, I detest Meta.
You know what?
All of their various platforms. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I will die before I go into the metaverse.
You're a smart man.
Yeah, I'm not dealing with that stuff. But anyways, I brought something from the Badcast Discord. This is Badcast Discord user, the elusive Sean, and their work in progress Dark Angels Land Raider Redeemer.
Mhm.
And the reason I brought this in, it is work in progress. There's two big reasons why I brought it in. One, we'll talk about it in Hobby Progress, but I just finished a Land Raider, and so I'm kind of got Land Raiders on the brain. And this is a particularly excellent, example of one. But the other reason I brought it in is the weathering on this is absolutely fantastic. They are doing a ton of the nice little stippling or stipling or whatever, sponging.
Yep.
There, Sean's got a lot of the details done with the decals on there and these like little bas relief carvings almost that are molded onto the doors in the front and everything. And I think it's already looking fantastic. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot left to do to finish on this one, but I'm looking forward to seeing the finished product. And like I said, I got Land Raiders on the brain. So this is a top tier example of one.
Some heated metal effects on the flamers would look cool. But I too like the weathering, and I always chicken out with weathering on my stuff because I get it looking nice, and then I'm like, now I gotta mess it all up. And
that's
I always
exactly what I do. Yeah,
tanks is where you go to play. Like that's where it happens. Yeah,
I always chicken out, but I will tell you, I think it always looks better with weathering, and I'm just I'm not there
for sure. No, I'm the exact same way, Carl. I look at my lovingly edge highlighted tanks and vehicles and stuff, and I think I can't mess. I'm not messing that up. What are you, crazy?
Right.
I did it for my one Ash Wastes vehicle that I have finished. I did weather it, and it looks amazing. It's like the best model I have in my collection right now for paint wise. And I one day want to go back and weather all my Imperial Guard stuff. But I think for my Space Marine stuff, I think I'm just going to keep it the way it is, just because I just like the clean lines.
Yeah, I'm the same. The other, and I'm a huge Deathwing fan, by the way. There have been multiple times I've almost pulled the trigger on a Dark Angels army, and I love the idea that there's several armies that do this, but I like the idea that you have one main color for the whole army, and then you have one unit that is just like a particularly different color. Blood Angels do that as well, right?
Doug, they have crapo rules, but when it comes to models, the Dark Angels have the absolute sickest Hellbrecht models in the Space Marine range. Like the new stuff that they released for Dark Angels, there's like a command squad, like a Unforgiven or something command squad. I don't know what they're called, but they look crazy.
When they released the Lion, I think the Lion's one of the best models they've ever created.
Oh, the Lion! Don't so even get me started.
Yeah,
but
hard to go. But who doesn't love knights that are already knights?
But the danger, I think, with Deathwing is you always have to be careful because they're also very Christmassy colors. So you can. Somebody told me that once, and now I'm always like, okay, I gotta really be careful. You don't want to overdo it.
Tis the season, Carl.
That's right. So why don't we get into hobby progress? We'll just launch right into it. We'll then we'll go through hobby progress. Then we'll take a short break. We'll come back, do games. No, let's do hobby progress, games. Let's do it all before we get into Orlock.
I love it.
All right.
Love it.
So hobby progress for me. With the points reduction in the Chaos Space Marine range, I found myself with 95 available points in my 2,000 point list. And I thought,
wow,
what better to do? Well, I think I was under already. Like I was under by like 35, 40
You're
points.
Like 20 points.
Yeah.
Oh, you're that far over. Huh.
I had that room I could add an enhancement if I wanted.
You get to 35 points. It's like sometimes you're out of stuff. You
hard
can
to fill.
Yeah. I think you have to kind of let go of like I'm right at the edge of the points thing. You get as close as you can and you leave it. But
my Nova list was at 1970. And then this points thing, I gained 10, so I'm now I'm at 1980. Like I'm not going to try to get to 2000. I've got what I need, and it's just not 2000.
My sister's list.
I've come to terms with that.
My sister's list went up 5 points and then down 5 points, so it broke even. But this left me with enough room to stick a pretty fun unit in there. I thought I've really loved these Beastmen models.
Yeah.
So I bought the Beastmen kill team. I assembled them up and then painted them. And it took me very little time. This is mostly speed paints, and they came out amazing. Like, these are models that really take to the speed paint line.
Yeah. And you slapped up the speed paint?
I did. Yeah. But it was the Army Painter speed paint line on it. And there's just so many variations of browns and different colors I could use from there that, other than just a few things where I used actual paint, this is all speed paint work. And in person, they look phenomenal.
The cloth. Like the
skin, cloth, and fur. Take the slap
perfect.
chop method the best, I think. Yeah.
I wouldn't do Space Marines that way, but I'll do the heck out of these, or like cultists or something like that. Oh yeah, all day. I think I had them all assembled. I got up at like 8 a.m, and by noon they were done. All 10.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. That's got to feel so good.
It does. And then the best part is, going and setting them on the shelf right next to all the other painted stuff. Yeah, cool. Very satisfying. So then, in an ongoing effort to avoid doing more gold edging on Demon Engines, of which I have one leg
the
left.
pain is real.
I have one leg left to do on the third Demon Engine, and then I'm out. And I'll talk more about that too after I talk about games played. I decided I needed some objective markers. These are in keeping with my Thousand Suns objective markers. They're basically old ogre banners that I stick on a piece of brass rod through a base, glue it in there, and then paint them up and put some decals on them. It takes no time at all, but it makes for a really great objective marker. And I intentionally made they're like off angled, like they're not perfectly straight up and down for the most part, just to add that kind of chaosy element to them a little bit. So
yeah, it looks great.
the chaos that triggers people's OCD.
Yeah, it really does. It does.
Dang it.
I didn't have them in time for the event I went to, but I wish I had. And now that they're done, cool. I'm excited about those. All right, here it is. You were talking about Land Raiders, Dan.
Yeah, I am. I got them on the brain right now because I just finished that Land Raider yesterday.
God, that edge.
And it
looks
was
so good. Yeah.
It was about a month to do the whole thing. I kind of dragged my feet at the beginning when I was doing the turrets and sponsons and stuff, which I do regret, and I will not do for the Land Raider, the other Land Raider I'm working on right now. But I am really thrilled about this one, boys. This one looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I added a couple of red highlights because I paint third company Raven Guard with the red trim.
That's so smart.
And so I got the little red panel highlight on the side there, which I thought was necessary just to break it up a little bit and give it a little bit of
it's a really nice pop of color there.
Well,
so
good. So I did the white on the gun shields.
Yeah.
And I thought that I think with the Godhammer Land Raider with the las cannons, I think the guns look coolest in the back, even though I feel like that would be the dumb place to put them in real life.
I put mine up front, but yeah.
Shoot your guys as they're hopping out. But
Exactly,
it does look cooler. I agree. Yeah.
And so I thought that I had enough color, enough differentiation in the back half of the side profile. And so I put the red accent panel on the front half because I felt that it just needed something else there. And I will humbly state that I think I nailed it.
I think you did. Is that done with tape? Did you tape that in airbrush?
Yes. Yeah. So no, not airbrush, just regular old brush. And that was masked off with tape, but the one in the center on the door, the red stripe there, that is just freehand. I drew a line. And then just got it to the thickness where I wanted it and then just touched it up until it was straight. Very happy with how this turned out. Land Raiders are super good again in Warhammer also in 40K these days. So happy to be a part of the problem.
Oh, it looks so good. No, I've always loved Land Raiders. So.
Yeah.
I used to have a
great looking model.
I used to have a Chaos Space Marine list that was all Khorne Berserkers. This is way back. They weren't particularly good. But I had like one Terminator squad with a Chaos champion in Terminator armor with a demon weapon. So, and the Corn Demon weapon was like you would roll 2 die 6, and that's how many bonus attacks you got. But if you rolled a 1, you injured yourself and didn't get the attack.
Yeah.
I loved rolling double 6s. It's like 17 attacks on the charge. But I ran 3 Land Raiders in that list.
Hell yeah, dude!
It was awesome.
No, Land Raiders is so much fun. I've already played. I played we'll talk about it in games played some more, but I had to proxy them with my repulsors that I have painted up. But just having Land Raiders on the table is such like a powerful feeling. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And I've been playing this game. I painted a Land Raider in like 2006 was the last time I did it, right, for my Grey Knights. And I remember when I got that thing out on the table, I just felt so fulfilled. I don't know, because in those days the Land Raider was like the pinnacle of like heavy armor in the game. This is pre-Knights. This is pre-Flyers.
Fairly rare, yeah.
Yeah, and you wouldn't see him that much. They're like 350 points or something. So you wouldn't see him that much, but being able to put one on the table and then use it and watch it as it just shrugs off everything,
and then it drives over a piece of terrain and gets stuck.
It dies.
And gets stuck in a crater.
Oh my
Classic.
God. Yeah. Every time, man.
Every time.
Roll.
Yeah, but now they're good again, and we'll talk more about it in games play. But I'm so happy to have this thing done. I was somewhat, let's say, optimistic about the edging on this, the edge highlighting. I was like, it doesn't have more edges than a repulsor or even a gladiator lancer. It'll be fine. It won't take that long. Boys, I ate those words,
dude,
and they did not taste very good. It took me a long time to do this, and I actually drill a hole in the bottom of my tanks so I can screw in the painting handle. I have the
that's smart.
The old school painting handle here. It's I think it's a 3/16 size bit that you would use to drill in there. Okay. And I just screwed in there so I have the handle to hold on under it so I don't rub off all the painting that I'm doing. And especially with these like sort of angular models, it's important to do, or you're just going to rub.
Learn from the Astreus.
Well, the Astreus, I couldn't do that because it's solid block of resin.
Weight 800 pounds. Yeah.
That one I had, dude. I don't want to think about these painting the Astreus. Okay, I don't know why you bring that up.
Never again.
Frankly.
Yeah. All right.
Well, this is why
I'm very happy with this. Yeah.
This is why I'm doing all the gold on these 3 demon engines at the same time. And somebody's like, well, why don't you just do one of them? Because if I do one, I am never going back and doing 2 more. So I just need to fight through the pain and just get it done, and then it'll be done and I'll be happy. So.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Josh, what have you been working on?
Yeah, so nothing quite photo ready. Well, I should say, as the time of putting this slideshow together, nothing photo ready. First up, I did finish printing the Necromunda tile risers. So these are the ones that Amory designed, and I had so I've got 3 sets of the tiles. These are the plastic GW tiles that I will have lifted up, so I'll have about a 3-inch rise on these tiles.
Those look really cool.
But I can then add some more vertical elements to a second Necromunda board that I'm in progress of building. Similar to what Dan was saying earlier, my end goal for that one is to have it just fully glued and set and ready to go. I need to figure out how to store it, but aside from that, I think it's the way to do it. It's going to be gorgeous. Lots of verticality, lots of stairs, ladders, and multiple elevations and things like that, which is just so key to games of Necromunda. I'm not sure if I'll have that table done in time for the summer campaign that we're going to be kicking off here in a couple weeks, but I definitely won't have it done in a couple weeks, but it's something I just want to keep chipping away at, if nothing else.
Well, we've got a ton of other terrain for that. So
yeah. And I think we're covered for what we need. This is just something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and finally got everything I needed to pull the trigger on it. I drilled the gun barrels and primed my assault intercessors with jump packs and blade guard veterans. Similar to what Dan was talking about there, Land Raiders being back, Land Raiders being good, I really want to lean into the Sharkadons as an assault force, and Land Raiders are 100% the best delivery system to get your boys in combat.
Now that you can assault out
Blade guard will be in one, and a big old pile of assault intercessors in another one.
That's
what I'll start with, and I'll probably adjust from there. So speaking of which, I did pick up a second Land Raider for the army. So I did pick that up, and we'll have a fun time.
Are we talking? Are we talking Redeemers? Are we talking Godhammer? Are we talking Crusaders? What do you got?
I have the one I have painted currently is Godhammer with magnetized options to go Crusader if I need the capacity. Cool. Crusader weapon loadout never thrills me, but obviously a little bit of extra speed and transport capacity has its.
I don't know, dude. I mean, it's a lot of bolter shots.
The thing is, my guys being assault based are very good about killing the chaff stuff. So really what I need is the anti-tank. Okay. So this one, this one will be a dedicated Godhammer for the second one. But I do have the option to have either 2 Godhammers or a Godhammer and a Crusader.
You should paint the assault ramp doors with like a shark mouth. Looks like when it opens.
It's like when the San Jose Sharks come onto the onto the.
That's right. Smoke comes out.
Machine. Perfect.
Now we're talking.
Yeah, there we go. No, I'm gonna paint it and then glue it shut.
That's right.
I got a question for you about your about characters that you could attach to your Blade Guard and Assault Intercessor squads. What are you working with right now?
So right now I'm going Chaplain with the Assault Intercessors.
Okay, yeah.
To get that bonus on wounds, which just makes them more like with Oath of Moment potentially, or Chaplain, just getting more work done. And then I have the Judicare assigned to go with Blade Guards at the moment.
Yeah.
But I might, because I have extra transport capacity in a Land Raider, to fit more, I was like, it might be good to go Captain and Lieutenant just to get, lethal hits or something like that if I need to stack the deck a bit more. But I already have a Captain with jump pack going with the Assault Intercessors with jump packs. And I just, for the lore reasons in me for being such a long time player, again, been playing since 2nd edition, I can't have 2 Captains.
Right. Yeah. No, I feel that.
I can't do it.
I feel that. Yeah, the Judiciar is really, really nice with the Fights First abilities because, like, you can roll out of your transport, jump on an objective in front of a, mean-looking assault unit that the opponent has, and they charge you, and you get to fight first. It feels
huge,
great.
Yeah, I'll bet
when you get to do that. So here's a thought, and bear with me for a moment. You have 6 Blade Guard in a squad with the Judiciar. That's only 7 models. Land Raider can take 12. So you can always you can always throw a unit of 5 models in with those Blade Guard in their transport. Something like a small unit of Assault Intercessors or even a unit of regular Intercessors for that sticky objective goodness, right?
Yes.
So consider that.
My plan at the moment is a 5-man unit of Assault Intercessors with the Blade Guard. Just
beautiful.
Filling up the space. Yeah, you got
They're so cheap right now too. It's 75 points for 5. It's wild.
And I have like 40 more I haven't painted yet, so I just doubled it. When I decided to go, when I decided to go Primaris for this army, again, this is a 5th edition army that was all Firstborn, Small Marines, and when they actually had special rules for how the Carcharodons played, wanted to try and bring that to life in the Primaris contingent. So definitely, it's probably never going to be the strongest army, most competitive, being so heavily assault based. But a good mix of assault and anti-tank. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, if nothing else, and that's all I really care about at the end of the day. So,
dude, our friend Campbell McLaughlin, who is not here for this episode, and for that we're not. I was going to say for that we're thankful, but that's a lie. He brightens any room he walks into. He has been kicking butt with melee Marines.
We've seen
in 10th edition with his Black
Templars are a different breed, though.
With
Black Templars are definitely they're definitely Marines +1 right now.
Yes,
but there's still a lot of good combat units in Marines. So don't sell yourself short just yet, pal.
Oh no, I think I'll do fine and I'll have fun doing it. Last but not least, what I did do is my Necromunda Outcast gang. So I already have a Delok gang. I already have Enforcers. I am working on Redemptionist. But for this campaign, specifically for our Outlands campaign, I really wanted to lean into kind of just the Underhive Outcast out there thing. And I've in our group, I've definitely played a lot more Necromunda than anybody else. So bringing Delok, which have a lot of kind of feel bad potentials to them, it's like I'm leaving the Delok at home. We've got Dan's face says yes.
The feel bad Noctighoul, the single best character in the entire game. I hate that guy.
So I'm leaving Delok at home. Redemptionists are not ready to go, which definitely would have been my go-to for this one, but they're still in progress. And we have a couple players doing Enforcers already. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to play Enforcers. I'm leaving Delok at home. I have already had the models for about a year now to put an Outcast gang together. So this was the right time to do it. And I absolutely just leaned into the complete hive scum of these guys. They're all terrible. The leader is really fun, and I leaned into the backgrounds. Outcast gangs work really differently in that you have a lot of options for what background they choose from, what kind of what alliances they work with.
It's a sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sandbox, absolutely. And your leader really dictates the direction of the entirety of the rest of your gang. So I went with a criminal organization that's aligned with the Psi Syndicate and leaned into unsanctioned psychers. So I've got
one of these days I want to do an all Outcast campaign of Necromunda.
That'd be pretty cool.
Where everybody and I would pull from my collection of weirdos and Orlocks and Cawdor guys, but it would. And everybody can do that. You can have an Outcast gang with your Goliath gang, but you're using the Outcast rules with a Goliath flavor. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yes.
I think that would be a lot of fun because you'd see a lot of parity right off the bat as the gangs are immediately kind of at the same level for all of them, right? But you'd also see a lot of flavor in there because of the different ways you can customize each gang.
Much. Yep.
And then something like having randomly generated black market and trading post stuff that you can look up on Goonhammer if you really wanted to. We have something for that. That could be a really fun kind of force multiplier for a gang in a campaign there. So that's one of my many Necromunda dreams, but that's definitely one of them. Have an all Outcast campaign.
I'm here for that. That sounds awesome. So just earlier this afternoon, I actually finished all the painting. I had them base coated last time I recorded, but today I was actually able to finish the final highlights. I need to finish basing and oil wash, but I am hoping to play a game tomorrow. So I'll see if I can get the oil wash done tonight.
Nice.
I believe in you.
All right, let's go into games played. Josh, we'll start with you. We'll go to Dan, and then I'll go last because I got quite a bit under my belt this go.
Oh yeah. Mine's very short. Unfortunately, timing has not worked out. I have tried to make a couple games happen, and timing either on my end or somebody else's end just hasn't matched up. So I've only been able to play some role-playing games and some board games. Haven't actually hit it to the table, but we are going to Herrick Games for the grand opening of the new location tomorrow.
Yep.
And I'm looking to play many games.
The new spot's great.
Maybe Combat Patrol, Necromunda, maybe a little Bushido skirmish thing. So I'm definitely looking forward to rolling some dice and playing some mini games tomorrow.
Nice. Dan, what have you been playing?
So in the last couple of weeks, I got a couple of games in. I'm living that dad life, so I'm about a game a week generally. Yeah, and that's fine though. It's
that's palatable.
I'm not in my 20s anymore. I don't need to be playing all the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyways, so I had a Blood Bowl game. I was in for my league, the Dulles Underground Blood Bowl League out here in Virginia. I made it to the championship of the league with goblins, who are.
So you beat the
worst team. I did last Badcast episode, which I believe is 147. I talked about how I was going up against Wood Elves, and I did beat the Wood Elf team. And
That's
I beat the Wood Elf team by killing all the Wood Elves. I got them down to 3 players on the field in the second half. It was a slaughter fest. So I actually made it to the championship. Now, Goblins have, like, in constructed format in tournaments, Goblins have a sub 40% win rate, which is terrible. They're by and far the worst team in Blood Bowl. In League, things get a little bit different because League isn't really an accurate representation of the true power levels of teams, because anything can happen in League and stuff goes wild all the time.
They're fragile and they get injured a lot?
Not only that, but in League, a lot of teams are going to get, like, juggernaut status where their team values get really high. And when a Goblin team runs up against a team like that, then they're going to get big time inducement cash, and then they can snag really strong star players.
Yeah,
like Morgan Thorg or Ripper or Varog Ghoul Chewer. So it's not a really, like, the stats that we have for Blood Bowl are mostly all figured on tournaments, right? So a good tournament team does not a good League team make, if you understand. Like Wood Elves is a great example, where in tournaments they're been fantastic for decades at this point, but in leagues it's so swingy, because if your opponent starts breaking armor and your elves go down, especially your really expensive players like your War Dancers, I mean, your season can go from real good to real bad real quick. Anyways, I made it to the championship with Goblins against a Nurgle team. And again, Nurgle is also one of the worst teams in Blood Bowl in tournaments. They're around a 40% win rate because they're slow and they don't have any skills. But this team, this was, I think, the 3rd season, because this league has redrafting. The 3rd season this team has played. So they had a couple of really good players. And this game didn't go so great for me. Nurgle have a lot of armor 10 guys, and I just could not roll. I'll give you a quick anecdote. I did not pick up the ball until turn 4 in this game, because I could not roll 3-ups, gang. The entire game I could not. I ended up losing.
It was kicked to you, I take it?
It was kicked to me. But the Nurgle teams are so slow that it didn't, like, I wasn't threatened, but it still took me 3 turns or 4 turns rather to pick up the ball. But that was the story of the game. I just couldn't roll anything. He didn't, kill all my guys, because I had hired up to 16, and like I had a bunch of extra goblins and stuff. I just couldn't roll. And with goblins, especially, because they are bad at Blood Bowl natively, they have chainsaws and whirly guy fanatics and all that stuff, but the individual goblin is bad at Blood Bowl. And so I couldn't roll stupid checks. I couldn't roll dodges. I couldn't roll pickups. I couldn't roll pogos. Couldn't roll all this stuff. And I lost. I lost the game. I think it was either 1-0 or 2-1. And it was a good game, though. My opponent, Yates, is a really nice guy. I've known him for a while now. And he's a delight to play in Blood Bowl. But he was super happy because he hadn't beaten me yet in Blood Bowl. And so he's finally got one on me. So nice. Good for him. Good. But I'm just happy to have made it to the playoffs. I didn't expect any of this because I brought a Goblin team, but I had a good time, and I'll be definitely checking that league out again. Maybe not next year because we'll have the baby, but in the future probably won't take Goblins again though. And then I played a game of Warhammer 40,000. Actually, my first game since last year's Nova.
Wow!
I was on that Song of Ice and Fire kick. I was playing a lot of Necromunda, playing a lot of Blood Bowl in the winter and spring here. But it is now practice season for Nova. I've got my list. I've got most of my models painted. I'm still working on it. And I am trying to, I'm not going to win Nova, but I want to do well. I want to have good games and I want to play good players. So I called up my buddy Norman.
You're going for the tournament rather than narrative?
Yeah, the GT, playing in the GT. Yeah.
Nice,
I had so much fun last year playing in the GT that I want to do it again. Had a ton of good games, met a bunch of nice players, and it finishes up around 7 or 8. So time to go and have dinner afterwards, which was definitely cool. So I called up my buddy Norman. He's got Chaos Knights, which Knights is always going to be a skill check kind of list in 40K. can you deal with that much high toughness? The answer, that was the answer I was curious for, because I was like, all right, I got my list. I think I can do it. I don't think it'll be a problem, but I want to see. So I called up Norman, got the Chaos Knights going, and I did well. I did very well. The end of the game, I won very close game, 84-80. So really tight there.
Super close.
There were huge swings throughout the game. Turn one, he got the first turn, and so he brought up a few of his carnivores, which are the close combat not armigers, but war dogs. Close combat war. They're one of the best units in the entire game right now. I'm in love with these things. 14-inch movement, 6 attacks, huge strength, great damage. Hitting on 2s, wild, absolutely wild. So he brought up a trio of those across the board, and I was like, all right, if I can kill 2 this turn, I'm set. This is going to be great. So I only focus on 2. I'd like to have killed this third one, but I'm like, I as a Warhammer player for a long time, Space Marines player, you got to know you have to focus fire. You can't spread it out. You want to be able to focus fire to get stuff down. So the first thing I do is take my brand new Land Raider with the las cannons, point it at one of his carnivores, and his carnivore evaporates.
D6 plus
like,
1.
Nice.
Oh yeah,
shots.
dude, we got this. Awesome. And then I have a
no new model syndrome.
Well, just wait. Then I had a ballistus and a lancer on my left flank, and they both took aim at a second carnivore, and between the two of them did 3 damage. He was just that's when he used the ion shield. It's called something different in Chaos Knights, but I don't remember. For the 4-up invulnerable save from shooting, and he was just rolling 4s, man. He was just killing it. So I'm sitting there thinking, and this thing is like, I want to say 10 to 12 inches away from my Lancer, and the Lancer is, it's T10, but it's a 3-up save. It'll go down to a War Dog in combat, no problem. And so I'm like, here goes the Lancer. So his turn 2 comes in. He's like, all right, I'm charging this guy. And I say, all right, Overwatch with my Ballistus, because the Ballistus gets reroll hits against stuff that's above half strength. So this War Dog with 9 wounds, still above half strength. And I get 3 6s.
That's pretty solid.
Both.
Oh, wow.
both las cannon shots and one of the crack missile shots hit, and I'm thrilled at this point. I'm like, oh, this thing's dead. It's only got 9 wounds, but he saves all of them again. And no, I'm sorry, he missed 1, and I took him down to 3 wounds.
D6
so
plus 1,
D6 plus 1 on the las cannon.
Yeah.
So it took him down to 3 wounds, but he's bracketed, but he's still a war dog. He's still or a carnivore. He's still hitting on 3. So he comes in, eats my Lancer, and I'm like, oh, this could be bad. In that turn. And then the very next turn, he had sprinted a couple more of his carnivores in and charged my Godhammer Land Raider and ate it in combat. And at this point, I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be tough. However, my aggressors get out of their Redeemer, and I don't know if you all know this, but aggressors are really, really good right now. And I had the biologist with all the fixins on them, and they kill 1 War Dog in shooting and then kill a different in combat.
Wow.
And then my Thunderstrike, my speeder, came in and didn't die to Melta spear shooting from Brigands. They hit on 2s with strength 12 Melta against a strength 9 or toughness 9 speeder. It didn't die. He rolled 2 1s on wounds. I was thrilled. And so I was able to use its ability for +1 wound to take out his Lancer, his Big Knight Lancer, the next turn with my aggressors wounding it on 5-ups. And that was a big, big swing in the game. And after that, he kind of just ran out of juice. But it came down to the very last roll. My aggressor is still on the field at bottom of 5. Take aim at his 1 War Dog sitting on the center objective. If I can kill it, I'll get 4 points and I'll win. If I can't kill it, it's a tie, 80-80. It's got 5 wounds left. And with my grenades, my grenade racks on my aggressors, I do 10 wounds. It's got a 4-up save.
Yeah.
And 5 wounds.
And 5 wounds left.
And so Norman,
50-50 shot there.
50-50,
Literally.
right? He's got to make 6 saves to save the game. And so he starts rolling them one by one. And I'm like, oh no.
You have to. Yeah.
So painful.
He's rolling them one by one. And we get to the point on the 10th roll. He's got 5 successes and 4 fails.
So it's down to 1 roll.
It's down to the very last roll of a 4-up.
Nice.
And he beefs it. The knight dies, and I win 84-80. Fantastic game. Norman's a great player, a great opponent, and a good friend. Yeah. So it was a really good time.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, you can't ask for a better game than that.
No, sir.
So I went to last weekend this thing called the Maelstrom Mixer, which was in downtown San Jose. It was a 2-day event. It was super thematic. It was all narrative based. There were something like 54, I'm estimating, 40K players at the event, and another 30K players at a different event going on at the same time by a different group. It was hosted by the Faultline 40K group here in the Bay Area, which I used to be a part of and kind of bowed out of it for a while. It was a bit of a journey for me. It was out in Mountain View, but now it's in San Jose at this place called the Guild House, which is just an incredible gaming bar. So you have a bar right there, restaurants right all around it. It was pretty great. But everything was super.
The Faultline gaming group kind of asking for it.
Yeah, right.
Like, I mean,
I confuse it with Frontline all the time, right?
No, that's like being like living in Florida and calling it the Hurricane Gaming Group.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, why wouldn't you?
You're tempting fate there, Faultline Gaming Group.
Yeah, it's California. Everything's retrofitted for earthquake safety.
All right.
You get earthquakes all the time.
Now, tomorrow we're going to sink in the ocean, but
this is going to be a huge,
But this was a super thematic event, right? And the guidance that was given kind of up front was bring a 1,500 point list. Occasionally you can adjust the list between rounds, whatever you want to do, because the missions were all like super thematic. And I'll talk a little bit about some of them too. But
what's this place called again, Carl? I'm sorry.
The Guild House.
The Guild House.
Yeah, in San Jose. It used to be apparently a wedding venue, and now it's a pretty awesome gaming place. They have like video game stuff,
pool hall. Yeah, okay.
Oh my god! Oh wow, this place rules.
Yeah, I mean it's really really cool, and I got to meet the owner yesterday. Actually, he's really nice. Yeah, there's another place called the Fortress in Sydney, which you should look up, and you want to talk about gaming stuff. Anyway,
well, that's on a different continent.
Yes. Yes, in a different hemisphere. So anyway, the guidance was, hey, you make this 1,500 point list. Try not to bring named characters, like kind of create your own background for your warlord, et cetera, et cetera. So I brought a 1,500 point Black Legion list. Now this is going to be, I think my first game that I am playing there is the third time I've played my Black Legion list, realistically. The first time I've ever played this list of 1,500. Second time I've played this list of 1,500. So
did the Beastmen make the cut?
No, they were out. They're in the 2,000 point list. So I would say I've never played a game of 40K without making mistakes. This was no exception. Unfortunately, most of the mistakes fell against me, so I don't feel bad. Like it's not like I was cheating my opponent, like I was screwing myself. So here's what I brought. I brought a Demon Prince with wings, and by the way, I took just everything Chaos Undivided, which afforded me rerolls of 1s across the board. So Demon Prince with wings, Chaos Terminator Sorcerer, who was leading a 5-man Terminator squad that went in my Land Raider. I had 2 squads of 5-man Chaos Space Marine squads. They were armed with plasma guns and plasma pistols on the Aspiring Champion. I had a Forge Fiend, all with ectoplasma cannons, which, buddy, that thing does work. I mentioned the Land Raider, a Rhino for one of the squads of the Chaos Space Marines, 2-man Obliterator squad, and a 5-man squad of Havocs with the auto cannons and the las cannons. So 2 auto cannons, 2 las cannons on them. And the plasma gun on the leader. All around, like I was pretty happy with how the list worked. Like it's diverse. It like gave the opponent a lot to think about. Like what should I be fighting? And and it performed pretty well for 1,500 points.
Nice.
As I go through the games, I will talk about where I screwed myself. Okay. So day one, the first game I play. Okay. So it's very difficult to do a narrative event where you have 16 different factions. Why the hell are they here and why are they fighting and yada, yada. And so it kind of broke down into various war zones. And in the war zone that Chaos was in, we were kind of coming in to screw up everything everybody else was doing. But there was a battle going on between the Aldari and the Necrons. And basically once Chaos showed up, both those factions were like, oh, we got to deal with Chaos first before we solve our problem. What this meant in practice was that all weekend I played against Aldari.
Oh no!
There was a Drukhari in there, one Dark Eldar player, but it was primarily against Eldar. So my first game, and this is the cool thing, like the terrain was off the hook, really cool looking, super narrative. My first opponent I play is a guy named Jonathan and his Dark Eldar. Now, let me tell you, I have an aversion to Dark Eldar, and this is why. Because Justin plays Dark Eldar, Justin Kiefer.
Yeah.
Justin made me afraid of Dark Eldar because he's a much better player than I am. And also, he's like, oh, this is the best unit. I take 3 of those. Everything has poison. Everything has this.
He brings it.
Yeah, he brings it. When I'm like,
he don't mess around.
Yeah, he likes to beat on the puppy. So, the game is interesting. We have a center objective, and then we have 4 objectives. Two on one side of the table, 2 on the other side of the table. But you have at certain times, at certain rounds, you have these chasms that open up underneath the objectives. And so if you have units within 6 inches of the line, across the board. So if the center objective, you drew a line across the board from the center objective, you would have a chasm kind of open up beneath you there. Any units in that area need to make a leadership test or take like mortal wounds. Like it was not insignificant. It was like D3 mortal wounds or something to that effect. So holding any objective, and you would know what rounds they were going to fall, but like holding objectives was, you're tempting fate, but you have to get in there and hold them. So the way the game ends up playing out is I'm behind by 1 point through rounds 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like he keeps getting, 4 points. I'll get 3 or 4 points. Yeah, it's just like I'm behind by 1 point the entire game. And much like your game, Dan, at the end, it kind of came down to if I can pull off these 3 things, I will tie the game. And I was able to, at the very last minute, like pull off all of these things and ultimately for the first round ever get more points. Like the momentum had kind of swung in my direction.
Nice. Yeah.
And I was able to tie it up. Now, the way the objectives work, like once you, depending on how you won or lost, it was actually pretty cool because the tie was actually a minor success for my team.
Nice.
So it wasn't like, it was invalidated. And sometimes I could even lose, but still achieve like a minor success for the overall team. You had to get beat pretty bad for it to be like an unsuccessful adventure. So the highlights here were he had 10 witches with Lilith. I assaulted them with my demon prince in one round, just like wiped out every witch.
I thought you said no special characters.
It wasn't Lilith. It was her less astute cousin, Lilath, or whatever.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Again, you were encouraged not to bring special characters. Some people brought them. I'll get to that, and that's okay. It wasn't.
But there may be a theme.
Yeah, it's okay. But I really leaned into the narrative there. But anyway, this demon prince just wiped out everything. The interesting thing here is, and I probably actually would have wiped out Lilith too, but I didn't realize, and here's the first thing I'm doing wrong, that a demon prince like that also gets like demonic destruction when they assault, which means when they assault, I think it's you roll a d6 for every wound the demon prince currently has, like still has, and every 4+ is a mortal wound, up to a maximum of 6 mortal wounds.
Yeah.
So like,
they do their own impact hits.
yeah, as soon as they jump into combat, they're just already just wrecking house. So
how many wounds does it have when it's unwounded?
9?
Oh, I mean,
9,
that's,
10, 9, something like that.
Yeah, that's 4 or 5 mortal wounds on the charge.
Yep. And I lost out on that because I didn't realize that. The other thing, because I was still old editions playing in my head, I'm like, well, I'm not Tzeentch. I have a 5-up invuln. Nope. Demon Princes have a 4-up invuln.
Oh boy.
So I took a few wounds that I probably shouldn't have took and yada yada, but I learned my lesson, pretty quickly in that regard. So okay. Which is great.
You realized those two things after your first game, so you could take it.
I realized one of those after my first game. I realized the other one later. So great game, though. I mean, Jonathan was super fun. He was very thematic. Like, we had, as you can see by the pictures of the board here, we had like some awkward terrain where it was like, these ramps that go up and, we'd say, that's, you're in or you're not, I mean, it was all very, very friendly and a whole lot of fun.
Can you talk about the layers of that board? 'Cause from looking at the pictures here, it actually looks like it's on multiple levels.
Yeah. So that's actually what I'm talking about. It's on multiple levels and it's elevated probably 12 inches above the table below it itself, with the table below it being
interesting.
Like a bunch of cotton to make it kind of look like a kind of chasm, like smoky chasm and stuff.
Well, that's so cool.
It was very cool. This table's built by Michael Dunsmore last year, by the way, Josh.
Okay.
So
yeah.
really cool stuff. Again,
good dude.
My Forge Fiend here did a lot of work with those. I'm super excited about how the ectoplasma cannons work. They are just phenomenal.
That's a really good unit these days, the Forge
really
Fiend.
good. And I'll talk about that in day 2 because people started to realize that pretty quickly. Obliterators did great. Obliterators are great units. I know from all the leaks now, they're only able to take 2 Obliterators in a unit, and they shrunk their like Melta range by a little bit, so they can't deep strike and have Melta. That's fine. For unit killers and for vehicle killers, though, they're still doing tons of work. They're great stuff. So the Terminators did a little bit of work here. This is kind of towards the last round where my Terminators cleaned up a bunch of stuff. I had to make several things kind of happen. This was the game, though, of like I would kill everything in a unit but one guy. And then I'd kill everything in that unit but one guy, or the character would have 1 wound left. It was just a miserable exercise.
They're not Necrons. It's fine.
Trying to overcome it. So great stuff, though. Jonathan was an awesome player. Really, really enjoyed it. And just all around a great game. So now it's and we only played 2 games a day, and we had plenty of time to play the games, which is really nice. Like you're talking about playing in the GT at Nova. No, thanks. This is not my speed. I cannot do 3 games in a day. I just can't do it.
Listen, man, not everybody can. It's not for everybody. When I went to the New Mexico Grand Narrative, the GW event, it was a similar thing where you're playing 2 games a day and you had oodles of time for each game, and it's luxurious. And if you're, having a couple of beers and
so nice,
just being social, it makes it a very relaxing, very fun time.
Yeah, but you can see the terrain was just phenomenal. In the entire event, the terrain was phenomenal, except
it looks great.
Except for my second game, terrain was still great looking, no line of sight blocking, and I draw Dan and his kind of walking Eldar along with jet bikes in his unit or in his army. Eldari are really, really tough, tough.
Yeah. They're so reliable.
Yeah, with no line of sight blocking too. Even with his speed, he could get around most of, if there was, but it gave me even no real chance to kind of protect anything at that point. So I kind of just got unit after unit wiped out, during the game. Again, this was an army that had a lot of special characters in it. Like, he's like, oh, Eldrad cast Mind War on this guy. I'm like, okay, cool.
Eldrad? This is But you're not supposed to bring. You're supposed to bring your own characters.
It was suggested that you don't bring those, but obviously not everybody got the memo. So that's fine. Again,
would you recommend a harder suggestion?
Yeah, I think so. I think a little bit. This was my first real experience against Eldar, except when I played against Shell, and that was more like a learning game for Shell. So, man, it was pretty brutal. I lost the game, but not as badly as I could have. I was able to like hold out long enough that I ended up with a minor success in this scenario. But you can see in some of the photos that I'm showing on the YouTube channel that there's not a lot of line of sight blocking stuff here. The cool mission though, and this mission was written by Bryce, it was kind of like one of the old missions where you would go and you could pick up an objective and carry it with your unit. And then you were scored based on if you held the objective at the end of the game was the only time it scored. If you held the objective and if you held it in your deployment zone, you got even more points. So I got super aggressive because I was like, I just have to get in there. And I grabbed objectives right away. I got one in my Land Raider. I had one squad of Terminators carrying one. I even asked the TO at the time, I said, well, these guys are carrying this. Can they get in the Land Raider with the one they're carrying? And the Land Raider has one in there. And he's like, no, the hold's full. You can't. I said, that's a very reasonable narrative, solution. But it was brutal. But I learned a lot from the game. And so Wraith
a lot of
Lords are phenomenal. Wraith Lords are phenomenal.
The preponderance of special characters in this list reminds me of my least favorite thing about narrative events is that there are some players out there that look at a narrative event as an opportunity to flex and, bring their tournament-ish lists to and just like, pub stomp. Yeah. In parlance
pub
there.
Stomp. I like that. Yeah.
I think that's bad form, honestly. It's suggested that you shouldn't bring special characters, and somebody shows up with more than one. Like,
I agree, but what are you going to do,
pal?
Yeah. What are you going to do?
What are you doing over here?
That's okay. Lesson learned. I think my suggestion to the TOs would be enforce it a little harder. Enforce it a little hard. But you can see here in this picture, I have an objective in my Land Raider. I have an objective in my Rhino. I'm just trying to drive the hell away from these guys. And it didn't work out so well. So anyway, great game though. I mean, from a learning perspective, again, bear in mind, this is like the 5th game I've ever played with my Black Legion. And I'm not the kind of person that can look at a codex. Like Justin is very capable of looking at a codex and going, this is a good unit. This is a good unit. I'm going to pair it with this and it'll do this. I have to get out there and actually play the units to really get a sense of how they play. But that was the end of day 2. It wrapped up, day 1, and it wrapped up around 6:00 in the evening. We'd been able to have Not drinks. Bad. And let me tell you, like Dan was actually a very nice opponent. Like he was fun to play with, and it, I just wish he hadn't brought so many name characters. But it is what it is.
Yeah,
no big deal. I go home now. The guild house is all on a concrete floor.
Oh no!
I was wearing tennis shoes. I knew kind of that.
Your dogs are barking.
Yeah, I go home. Listen, I'm 54 years old. I go home, and a couple years ago, I bought Shell a mechanical foot massaging machine. Like it's not a cheap one, too. I was like, break that guy out, and I just that felt good. So the next day, I was totally revived. So day 2 rolls.
It's always my knees on concrete. After a day standing on concrete.
Yeah, by the halfway through my second game, I was just sitting down a lot because I was just like, I don't want to stand on this concrete anymore. So day 2 rolls around, and as we get our missions for like the chaos side, we're like, okay, who wants to fight this mission? Who wants to fight that? You don't know who your opponent is. You're just picking from the 5 missions available. And they were not always symmetrical. So like I may have different objectives than my opponent in some of these. So in the second one, I wanted to play in a team game, and Michael Dunsmore was playing a very Demon Engine heavy list. And I was really excited to see, I want to see how that works because I am, working on a list very similar. So
Nice.
Dunsmore and I rock up, and I'm like, all right, cool. We have to actually lower our list to 1,000 points. So I lower my list down to 1,000 points. I don't remember what I dropped. I'll tell you what I didn't drop was I didn't drop the Forge Fiend.
Yeah.
I had the Demon Prince, the Forge Fiend. I think I still had my Land Raider. I think I had dropped the Rhino. I had 2 squads of Chaos Space Marines. I had to drop my Havocs. Havocs are a fantastic unit, by the way. But we rock up against Andrew and Jonathan. And Jonathan, the player of the Dark Eldar the day before. Andrew is a very good Eldar player.
Yeah.
Andrew is a very good player in general. We should have focused on the Avatar. We did not, much to our detriment. In the last 3 rounds of the game, I think that Avatar was destroying a vehicle or unit a turn. So, but the table was fantastic. We had tons of line of sight blocking. It was a crashed ship that had just crashed into the area. There was smoke in the middle of the table, so all attacks were at a -1 if you were shooting anything in the center, like 12 inches of the table, as long as it was.
Nice.
Great stuff. Right off the get-go, and this is where I was talking about that Forge Fiend. There's a 10-man squad of Wraith Guard there with, of course, a Wraith Seer.
Spirit Seer.
Or Spirit Seer. They come walk up. I'm like, oh my God, that unit is, and they're trying to get to the center objective. Boy. We have first turn. I fire all the cannons from my ectoplasmic cannons and I destroy 5 of the Wraith Guard in one go. And I'm like,
nice.
And Andrew goes, whoa. Like, wait a second. Like, what?
Yeah, that's a big deal. Yeah. That's a lot of toughness and wounds you just got rid of.
Guess what died next? They were like, get rid of that Forge Fiend, and everything went after. Now they threw a lot at it, but they took out the Forge Fiend right away. And it was awesome to see. I wish I'd had 2. I would have solved that problem right from the get go.
Yeah, the Forge Fiend is real nice.
Yeah. So, we kind of charge into the middle. We get super aggressive with it. I did not know Michael Dunsmore had never played against Eldari before.
Oh,
yeah. So it's about round 3, and Andrew is like bringing back Wraith Guard, and one Wraith Guard a turn.
Yep. What?
And Michael goes,
"That's what they do.
Do you have to spend a command point for that?" He goes, "No, they just do that." And he's like, "What?" He goes, "Oh yeah, and they do this, and they do that." And he's like, "How much is that unit?" And he goes, "That's 65 points." And he goes, "Are you kidding me?" Like, he's just like, Michael just lost his mind. He's like, "We don't have anything like that."
Yeah, there's a lot of that in Eldar.
Yeah.
For y'all who haven't played Eldar yet, there's a lot of that.
Yeah. And the thing with Eldar is there's a lot of synergy in the army, right? And there always has been. That's kind of been their thing. But with the current index chaos, there is no synergy for units. It's just kind of, my unit does this unit does this, like, there's not a lot you can, I enhance this unit with this, and then it does this and that and the other thing. But this was actually the game where I realized I should have been having a 4-up invuln save the entire time on the Demon Prince.
Oh, no.
Too late. By that point, the Avatar had kind of walked all over us. We just got butchered in this particular game. But I learned also how effective tank shock can be in this game now. Yeah. And so you can expect to get some tank shocks from Land Raiders and from
Hellbrutes?
Not Forge Fiend, not Hellbrutes, the
Mauler Fiends.
Mauler Fiends. Oh, buddy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
It's like the Brutalis Dreadnought, who has its own kind of version of tank shock, and then you can tank shock on top of that.
Yeah, he's immortal wounds.
Some of those things are just
celebration.
I threw my Demon Prince and my Terminators with their Sorcerer into the Wraith Guard, and then he counter assaulted with the Avatar, and I lost everybody.
The Avatar is real good.
Oh my God, the Avatar is so good.
That's definitely a shoot that one. Don't shoot the choppy ones.
Yeah. And Andrew even told us, he was like, you should have focused on the Avatar right from the get-go. Just take it out and then worry about everything else. Yeah. So lesson learned, but we did have a good time. It was funny to see Michael kind of lose his mind as he realized just how powerful the Eldar are. So, okay. We lose pretty badly this game. I think we had maybe 2 units left on the board at the end of the game. But good times were had by all, even though we got wiped out. And by the way, both of their armies are fantastically painted, just fantastically painted. I loved the Dark Eldar look. I loved Andrew's Eldari, and Michael's Chaos army is really well painted as well. It really complemented mine, which was kind of nice.
Nice.
So then my fourth game, we go to lunch. I have my fourth game, and my fourth game is against. Guess what? Eldari.
Yeah.
This time it's Eric and his Eldari. And Eric brings a Wraith Knight, a bunch of Harlequins with, their various vehicles, some Harlequin jet bikes that fire, what do they call them? Haywire shots or something? Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
He had one single character shooty guy that would just do like D6 mortal wounds around, like just wiping out, I don't even know what he was, but sure. Okay. The reason I show a picture in the YouTube channel of the board is because this was a very interesting, this is the last mission of the day, and Chaos has basically come in and done a pretty good job, but now we're just like, hey, let's get out of here before, the counterattack or whatever. And so my mission was, there were 5 objectives on the table, and there's a Chaos gate in the middle of the table. And my mission was to basically hold each objective, and for each objective I held and didn't take like a shooting or assault action or fight action rather, I could take an action to kind of activate the
portal
objective, which is activating the portal. And I would score, either a failure, a success, a minor success, a success, or a major success based on how many points I could acquire throughout the game. Mm-hmm. As soon as I saw the Wraith Knight, I thought, uh-oh. Fortunately, Chaos went first. And also, this is the other rule I had not realized. Terminators have a rule which basically allows them to reroll all attacks. Not just ones, but all attacks when they charge or when they're in a fight. And I had no idea. So this whole time I'm just rerolling ones, and I'm the master of rolling twos, by the way. So, this.
Have you not been using your command bunker?
You know what I have been using a lot is my dark packs. I got real good at using dark packs, and I'm aggressive with it. Like I'm just like, all I have to do is roll leadership with a 6 up. I've got a couple guys that can re-roll that leadership, especially the sorcerer. So I'm just like, land raiders firing. Yeah, dark packs.
Yeah.
Four shots from a land raider. Hey, 6s. Oh, look, more damage. So I was super aggressive with it. I loved it. I'm glad to see that it's not going away, but it's just, they did change when you roll leadership, which I think is a very fair change. So as we record this, we're like a week and a half out from the release of the codex, and it's been leaked everywhere. So
yeah, I think the pre-orders go live tomorrow.
Oh yeah, buddy. I'm so excited. I'm excited because it looks good. Okay. So fortunately, the narrative says that I go first. Unfortunately, what this means is in my bright idea, I'm like, I need to have a infantry type unit on every objective. So in my first round, I will just check off every objective. I'll get 5 points right off the bat. I'm already into the minor success. Unfortunately, I didn't realize I couldn't shoot. So like 2 of my units had shot. And then I realized, oh wait, I'm not allowed to do anything else. So I collect 3 points in the first round. Still okay. I'm gonna be successful. But rather than like deep striking obliterators, which is obviously like their chosen, generally that's how you want to bring them in. I just was like, I'm sitting them out there on this objective. They're gonna be a tasty treat for this Wraith Knight. But I'm drawing him away from, what else I have going on. Unfortunately, what this means is my Terminators, who have just realized after the last game that I get to reroll all attacks on, basically just sit on an objective the entire game, doing nothing but sitting on an objective. The game progresses. My first shot was with my Forge Fiend, and with that, I wipe out 3 of his Haywire bikes in one go. He's able to, he's able to destroy, I think, damaged the Forge Fiend. I don't remember if he destroyed it entirely. But what's interesting is like the way the game ended up playing out is on the right side of the table. He kind of focused on the right side of the table where I had Obliterators. I had a squad of Chaos Marines and a Rhino. I had my Forge Fiend. On the left side of the table, I had my Land Raider with the Terminators out of it on an objective, but the Land Raider just kind of standing there shooting. And my Demon Prince kind of making his way up the field while I have Havocs on an objective and et cetera. He kills the Forge Fiend. He kills the Havocs. He kills the Obliterators. But by this point, it's like round 3, and I've collected enough points to be in like the successful category. And my Demon Prince is just ripping up everything he has. I mean, to the point where his chaos or his Wraith Knight is literally fleeing from the Demon Prince. Like he's like, I don't want any piece of that. And not only that, it's because where the Demon Prince was coming, the Land Raider was sitting too. So if he was in range, I could hit it with las cannons and then have the Demon Prince assault. And this was also I think the second game where I realized, I get this demonic assault. And like, I'm just ripping through. So the Demon Prince was absolutely the MVP of the game. And what he ended up dying at the end, but what he ended up doing was distracting him so much from destroying anything else that I was able to accumulate enough points to get. I was 1 point shy of a major success, but I had a success in the game. It was kind of my first real success in the whole thing.
Nice.
So
nice.
Yeah. So, and then I headed home. I actually left before they did awards and stuff. I don't need more junk in my garage. But the event, again, heavily narrative focused. I really liked how they were doing the narrative, especially for such a diverse group of players. I never got to play against a Necron player. Unfortunately, I spent the whole time fighting. There were players at the event I never got to like really meet or talk to because they were orcs and they were playing in a whole other zone. So
yeah, but I'm sure you heard them.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. How many wahs were yelled across the entirety of the venue?
And it's very hard to pull this off, like 16 factions doing different things. Like I get it. And so they did what they could and it worked. I mean, it worked for what it was. It's a stronger narrative that way, but you're going to have some you have
people
some
who just aren't going to connect.
They really had you on hard mode, huh, dude?
Yeah. Which I'll be honest, I kind of appreciate. Like I kind of appreciate after coming the other side. At first I was like, God, Aldari again, but coming out the other side of it, I'm like, I've learned a lot about how Aldari play, but I also got to learn a lot about how my army plays and what its strengths and weaknesses were.
Yeah.
Iron sharpening iron over here.
Yeah, for sure. So they also had a streaming table that they were video streaming from that Michael Dunsmore had created. And it was like crazy. Like it had, you know those things that how magnets will like hold something up and it floats. Like they had these spinning things that were floating above the table from the magnets underneath it. Ooh, they had like a live like water fountain kind of thing with a floating island that the water was like pouring down into this pool.
Actual water on a board. Yeah.
They had a god dang water feature.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think after the first game, they were like, nobody wants to play with the water feature on because it was like splashing outside of the water thing. And they were like, if your models aren't sealed, you probably don't want to play on this thing. I was like, can I opt out of playing on the stream? I was not interested in playing on the stream. I mostly just wanted to go and have fun. But the table was gorgeous. And like anything, it had LEDs in it and all this stuff. And like anything like that, of course, there's a bunch of technical problems, but it did look good when it was on and working. So... My dude Michael Dunsmore, who I don't know, he took the idea of a streaming table quite literally. Yeah. So I mean, listen, I will do this again next year. And Dan, you were talking earlier about how you're like in total 40K mood. Like I am like, when can I get my next game of 40K in?
We're so back, Carl. We're so back
to the point where like, and honestly, it's because of Josh. I mean, we were playing a game. Josh was like,
that's right.
You should get, do you have 1,000 points worth of Black Legion at this point? I was like, if I throw Abaddon in there. And so we played like this little game and that just got me like painting everything. And now I'm just like fully on board for playing.
Yeah, dude.
And, to the point where they play at the Guild House every Thursday evening, and I'm going to go there next Thursday and play. So I've already set up my game.
Is it super far from your house or is it close?
It's about 15, 20 minutes. So it's pretty close.
Danger Zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not
So
bad.
Shell and I went there yesterday. She was pretty impressed with it. She's like, this is really cool. So she may even just go to hang
I'm
out.
about to hop on a plane and go hang out.
Cool. It's pretty
Place
cool.
looks cool.
Yeah, it's fun. So great event. I really want to thank the guys from Faultline. They did a great job with the whole thing, and it's hard to wrangle a bunch of gamers. It's really hard to do that, and they did a great job of it
For sure.
and it was fun. And 2 games a day is perfect.
Yeah. No, it sounds
Yeah,
great. I'll even try and make it next year.
Yeah, you
It's just
should.
bad
As
timing
a-
this year, but
As an incipient 40K old guy, 2 games a day is real nice.
yeah.
By that, I was
the
tired,
right
but I was
pace.
like the right amount of tired, and so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that said, we've gone a long time of just hobby progress and games played, but I really wanted to focus a bit on this event because they just did such a great job, and it really scratched an itch for me. I'm looking forward. I think my game Thursday is set up against Gene Stealer Cult, which is cool. I haven't played them in a long time.
Oh,
so,
nice.
yeah. So that should be.
Yeah,
a lot
I've
of
that'll
fun.
be
not
fun.
played them since 8th.
Yeah. So I'm looking.
I'll be
forward
curious to see how it goes.
Me too.
Nice.
Me too. At least I'll know what my saves are and how many attacks I get now.
Yeah, you know what your stuff does now, so
But
that's
I
a
am
plus.
glad that like the mistakes I made were counter to me, right? Like I would hate to like give somebody a feel bad of like, oh, I did something. Like there was one point where we did something wrong.
Yeah.
And we realized that I was like, you know what? Put one model from that unit back. Like it was maybe I did less or something, and so we were like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
So it was great. Everybody had a great attitude about it. So
And hey, you came away from it learning a couple of things about your army.
that's right.
And learning a bit about the game. You can't be mad about that, even making mistakes.
Right.
Yeah, that's the best way to learn. So, all right, so we're going to take a short break, and we will be right back. All right, and we're back, and now that we've gone an hour and a half, we'll
I feel
talk
like it's my fault somehow.
No, it's mine.
Sorry.
But it's mine. But I really wanted to talk about that event because I'm so, Dan, like we were saying during the break, like I'm so into 40K right now, and just I'm all about it. Like, I'm going for Table War charities for the Nova, but I'll bring an army if you want to get a game in, and if you
I will have my army.
I know you're going to be exhausted.
I don't know how much time, but let's
a lot of
optimistically
games, yeah.
let's optimistically plan for it.
I'll bring one just in case.
Speaking of
Todd
how
beat me up.
Speaking of how we're super into 40K right now, Carl, let's talk about Necromunda.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really glad we decided on this topic right as I got super jazzed about 40K. So,
Hey, I'm super excited for Necromunda because we're kicking off a campaign.
we are, and I'm looking forward to it. Look, I can juggle multiple balls. Okay, so
Yep.
so let's talk about House Orlock. They're known as the House of Iron because even way back in '95 when they were originally introduced with Necromunda, the first release. They their house controls like mining of iron as well as other things that they find out in slag heaps and ruins out in the wastes.
We should point out when they talk about mining on Necromunda, it's less of like mining as we would recognize it as like processing ore and raw materials into into usable materials, but more digging up old trash and seeing if it's still useful,
melting it down.
Yeah,
so the refuse pits in Necromunda it's just all the old stuff that has been thrown in recyclers, and it's just they're literally melting that down and then pulling out the pure metal from just all the trash that has been collected. And that is the ore that they are then converting into weapons to fulfill Imperial tithe contracts and things like that.
Yeah. And as we go into kind of the history of the house itself, like this is really like a large find is really how they secured their power base and began, began their strength. So original Necromunda, they're still known, they were known as the House of Iron. And Josh, you were saying before we even started recording, like their history hasn't really changed much.
Yeah, there's definitely like 3 kind of staple bullet points that have been there since '95. The Gangs of the Underhive re-release of the all the core gangs in 2017, and carries through to the House of Iron book, which dropped in 2020. And these kind of staples are they're
mining.
basically they're mining, so that's always been there. The rivalry with Dalok, which is interesting because it's not mentioned in any of the Dalok lore at all.
Right.
This rivalry is very specifically on
Purely
the Orlock side of things.
It's one-sided. Dalok's like, oh, are they? Are they upset with
Oh, we have a rivalry? Okay, I guess. Cool.
I don't even think about you at all.
That's right. That's the biggest insult.
And then the kind of the organization of the gang itself, where you have the kind of the multiple houses at the top of that, and then it's really kind of a caste system that this has. They've extrapolated and expanded upon it a bit, but there's basically like there's the dregs of the Orlock house. Then there's the gangers, which have kind of risen up above the dregs to like really are enforcing the dregs, and then also doing combat with other houses in Necromunda. And then you have kind of the nobility of the houses up above that.
Yeah, we can break that down a little bit more. The way House Orlock is set up really sucks. Because at the bottom they have a lot of slave labor working in their mines, which again, not great, but that's how it goes on Necromunda.
And you're literally worked to death.
It's life is extremely cheap on Necromunda, and so the Orlocks have just an untold number of slaves laboring their lives away in these horrible mines. And then they have like the dregs above them who make make a very poor, pathetic life out of their servitude to House Orlock. And then you go up from there, and each successive ring is smaller and smaller and smaller until you get to like the noble houses and the leaders of the noble houses. It's a very feudalistic, serf-based kind of society. And any sort of like diving into it and reading about it, and like my reaction was just like, oh man, this is rough. Yeah, this is rough stuff.
I think
it's interesting on the evolution side of things, in that there was always kind of this serfdom and the dregs down below, but they didn't really call it out as slaves until the House of Iron 2020 book. Which we know, but similarly with Goliath, like Goliath are essentially slave labor to everybody else in Necromunda, and including to themselves, because Goliath like enslaved their own kind in order to do this. So this whole that aspect is in more recent years, which is interesting.
But I think
although it's the foundation's kind of always been there.
The thing the Orlock houses do that's kind of smart is, yes, they have these slave laborers, and they've had rebellions from these slaves in the past and have had to put them down in different ways. But after the major rebellion that occurred, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but what they did, which was really clever, is they'll promote people from within the slave group up into the dregs and then up into the gangers, and make sure people they'll give them kind of like a nod, like, okay, yeah, this guy's okay, to make everybody feel like, oh, I could potentially move up in this out of this shitty situation I'm in. Oops. Yeah. Dan was on the call and I started swearing. Out of this bad situation.
Hey, I didn't do it though. I didn't do it.
It was me. Out of this bad situation that I'm in, and kind of I can grow out of that theoretically. Yeah. Now, how often that actually happens? I mean, gangers die, they got to replace them. This is where they're replacing them from. The people they see.
That little bit of hope that it gives everybody in the lore side of that, though, like, oh, life could potentially be better. I could get promoted to that next level, that next tier.
Right.
That hope is one of the most powerful things of keeping these people in check and enslaved, which is terrible. But
I mean, they're using textbook oppressive, repressive sort of maybe not government, but society. Where they're giving the real world philosopher Paulo Freire he's Brazilian. Can't do Portuguese very well, but he said when education is not liberating, the dream of the oppressed is to become the oppressor.
That's right.
And that is
that's frightening in a real world context right now.
Yeah,
Yes.
feeding on a fundamental human quality of wanting to be in charge, of wanting to be in control, and keeping those rebellions down. So yeah, it's like, it's a pretty grim setting, Necromunda. Like when you think about it, Necromunda is such a cool place with so many great stories happening and such a fun game to play on. But when you think about it, even just scratch the surface a little bit, you're like, man, really glad I don't live on Necromunda.
There is no corner of the 40K universe that like people want to be in. Like, you ask nerds and they're like, oh, what would you? Oh, I'd like to live in, Harry Potter's world or Lord of the Rings. Well, 40K, nope. Nope.
No thanks.
There is no. Now, one of the other themes to the army, or the gang, I should say, in particular, is that their focus is on sturdy and reliable weaponry and equipment, correct? Which they manufacture, I think, to a large degree themselves as well. So they're not focused.
They're a lot more low tech than the other. More so than they're higher tech than Goliaths for sure. But when you compare them with the Escher or the Delac or especially the Van Saar, the whole gang has nothing but like their energy projection weapons are like plasma and melta, right? There's no las weapons at all.
Right.
There used to be in Necro 95, you'd see Orlock gangers with las guns, but now it's much more like they trust metal. They trust
shotguns,
iron.
Slug throwers. Yeah.
Like their whole philosophy of like these bonds of iron with your gang, with your family or whatever. They've taken that extremely literally, and they trust in metal itself now.
Oh, that's kind of cool. So they're not focused on. There's not a lot of genetic manipulation. Stems, none of that stuff. Yeah. It's more focused on. It's almost like a Iron Warriors kind of attitude in some ways about it, right?
Yeah, they're societally also they're very like, their big thing is the family unit and then their gang, right? Where like they talk about the brotherhood and sisterhoods and all this stuff, but for Orlocks, like that is the most important thing. Is it's not just like getting wealth and becoming powerful or whatever, but it's elevating the family unit, the gang unit, and then their brotherhood. One of the cool things that I discovered in reading Mike Brooks's novel, what's it? It's a Necromunda novel about.
Is it Underhive? That's a collection of like short stories.
No, it's a novel. I'll look it up. I'll get the title right. But one of the things that he had written in was that the Orlock gangers, they don't directly refer to people that aren't Orlocks. Like, so if I was talking to you, I would say stuff. I wouldn't say you. Uh-huh. I wouldn't say Josh. I wouldn't say Carl. I'd say stuff like this guy or this person or something, because until you're bonded into an Orlock gang or family, you're not a person.
You don't have an identity.
Don't count.
Yeah.
To the Orlocks.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Which is a very interesting way to think, for them to think about it. But it's like the ramifications of that are honestly terrifying.
Yeah.
If they don't, if the Orlocks don't consider their adversaries, their opponents, their enemies, whatever, people, then that means that they're not going to hold back when it comes time to take care of business, if you know what I mean.
Some questionable morale.
Yeah, for sure.
So House Orlock, let's talk briefly about House Orlock's history, because I alluded earlier to I guess the founder of House Orlock, or really the guy that kicked it into kind of the next gear, was Olandus Orlock. And while he was out in the waste, the ash waste, scavenging around trying to find ruins and things to scavenge, there was like this really bad storm, and he ended up taking shelter in what ended up being the wreck of a warp ship on the planet that had been uncovered by the dust storm.
Yeah,
and
super rare, high technology
with tons of tech in it that he could scrounge out of it. So he kept that super secret that he had found this. But then began, coming and selling stuff from it and then getting others, as he kind of built up his clan around him, and they became incredibly wealthy as a result of this.
So he had gathered all the kind of family houses together, and the lore alludes to he gave them an ultimatum. He's like, you're either joining me and we're going to share in all this profit and we're going to build something awesome, or I'm just going to kill you right now.
And then so he left, and
everybody joined him.
Well, not everybody. The ones that joined him left with him. Everybody else, they came out with their vehicles and stuff. So basically he killed off a bunch of the guys at that point. Which is pretty
and
cool.
they truly formed the kind of upper echelons of the royal family, not royal, but the House of Orlock, comprising of the few families there. Yeah. So the Cinderax and
I think
such.
The other major, and Dan, feel free to jump in anytime, like if I'm leaping too far ahead, but like the other major point in time was the Crucible Schism for Orlock, which is where I talked earlier about. They had like a major uprising of all of the slaves and kind of lesser groups. And they solved this in a pretty interesting way, basically kind of turning the slaves upon each other and advancing some people into the group and saying, hey, this is your opportunity to grow within the Orlocks. And that kind of led to this whole system that they have now, Dan, where they kind of promote from within there occasionally, but they kind of dangle the hope of increasing your social standing regularly to kind of keep people on the hook.
Yeah,
so this was kind of
keeps people in line at the bottom.
Yep.
Gang. There's a lot of real world allegory happening right now.
It's frightening.
I'm picking up on it. I hope everybody else is too.
Paying attention. Yeah. So the rebellion, the upper echelons of House Orlock got really just kind of soft and decadent, and they were really just living the good life and couldn't do anything for themselves without having 10 servants to do the most fundamental activities for them. They were really a far removed from how the House Orlock was founded and kind of what its true.
This is years after the founders did.
This is a couple hundred years. Again, we should say this is back in Millennium 38. So this is quite a ways back from thousands of years back from current day Necromunda and 40K. And it was funny because the response that these nobles had to quell this rebellion was we'll just hire out a bunch of hired guns and send them to the mines and squash the rebellions. But then the rebellion leaders, having access to all these resources in the slag pits and things like that, they just paid off all the mercenaries that were sent to kill them. Mercenaries end up joining the Orlocks that are enslaved at that point, and they turn the tide, and now they have this huge army, and they've basically are offered ultimatums. The leaders of the rebellion, the nobles at the top of the house, knowing that they've been outmaneuvered here, now offer that kind of ticket to the leaders of the rebellion. Like, hey, we'll give you a promotion if you can get everybody to knock it off. And that ends up happening. So,
I had it a little wrong there. That's actually interesting. That's even more interesting. It's even more interesting.
Yeah, it was a stunning moment of class solidarity between the serfs and the mercenaries hired to kill the serfs. That was unfortunately broken up by the oppressive ruling class of the Orlocks by selectively and limitedly, elevating some of the people involved in the rebellion.
And it goes to that
classic unions and union leaders, and you give a promotion to the union leaders, and then they keep the union in line. And
gang, there's a lesson here.
People are great.
There's a lesson here.
That goes right to what you were saying earlier, Dan. So let's talk a little bit about how the gang fits into Necromunda, like where their slot is. We talked about they're responsible.
Where isn't House Orlock is really the question. They're involved in just about everything.
They're not in drugs. They're not in medical. They're not.
Yeah, but they're
not poison. They're not information.
Most of the the metal for
The iron.
everybody on Necromunda
Yep.
to work
They have
everything.
real world industry, unlike Escher or Dalok. Yeah,
Hey, Goliath works the
a really good
forges.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then again, they also control all the trade routes,
Yes.
pretty much between the hives and out in the ash waste, and even in the hives themselves. And very importantly, they make all the booze.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wild Snake Alcohol Distilleries.
Yeah,
You got to keep
so
everybody in line with the booze.
they're all over Necromunda. They're one of the more numerous gangs out there.
I feel like
houses, I should say.
I feel like they have a really strong presence in the ash waste. Where like I feel like some of the as they launch Necromunda Ash Waste, like some of the gangs, while yes they have a presence there, it doesn't feel as natural a fit as it does for the Orlocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and canonically,
100% the right choice for the starter box.
Canonically, Orlocks have the largest presence out in the ash wastes, other than like the ash waste nomads or something.
Right.
But because they control these trade routes, and an Orlock gang is led by a road captain, right, and a road boss, or and they have all these road names associated with them, and like it's a traveling sort of lifestyle for a lot of these gangs as they go from place to place, protecting caravans or raiding caravans, or gun running out in the desert or whatever.
Right.
It's like a biker gang.
It's cool as hell, guy.
It's kind of a biker gang, but it's like multiple biker gangs that are all under one biker gang.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty interesting, but yeah, I think Ash Waste is where they really kind of come into their own personally, and I'll talk about that.
Ash Waste is so good. I don't know if you
I haven't played it yet.
Ash Waste games. It's so good. It's so much fun. It brings such a just wild level of fun to games. I mean, you do want to throw in a little bit of cautions when you're building an Ash Waste campaign. It's like, hey, maybe people don't take the big rigs, the cargo eights
the ridge
at gang creation, because they're pretty much unkillable in terms of Necromunda. So maybe you don't let them take that at the beginning. Maybe you cool it with a lot of the nastier stuff and take it easy in the first few rounds of the campaign. But I mean, once it gets going, like, people are leaping from vehicle to vehicle.
Oh, that's amazing.
Attacking the people on top. Like, these cars are exploding and rolling over and just causing mayhem.
Mad Max.
Yeah, and you can get some of the real fun heavy weapons that you normally don't see in the game. And there are weapons that, like, in Necromunda, like, suck. Yeah. Right? Like, there's no, like, seismic weapons. There's no reason to use them in regular Necromunda. But then you get an Ash Waste table, and seismic weapons, they mess up vehicles. Because like you're taking handling tests and out of control tests every time you get hit by them. And if you roll 1 out of 6 on one of those failed handling tests, I mean, that vehicle's done. It rolls, right? So
I want to play that. So
a lot of cool things happening out in the Ash Waste, guys. A lot. If you haven't played, if you're a Necromunda player listening, if you haven't played, give it a shot. Like, really, you don't have to go out there with vehicles even. Just get outside, play some games outside. But huge recommendation here. Please remember this. Use weather. Use the weather tables that are in the Ash Waste book and in
gotta use the storm, the visibility.
Absolutely. You have to, otherwise things get kind of messed up. And it also just makes it like really interesting when you have a table surface, the floor, if you will, is something that you either can't move on, or if you don't move from, it'll drag you down and swallow you whole. Like, Ash Waste is a ton of fun.
So you'd say it's kind of like playing Aeronautica without missions if you don't use the weather table. Yeah. Like, that was such an integral part of that game. I didn't realize when I first played it. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that always frustrates me about Necromunda and people who get into Necromunda. Their first couple of games are going to be like these just shoot 'em ups, right? Yeah. When they're like learning the rules, or whatever. I don't think that's helpful. And a lot of Necromunda games do devolve into shoot 'em ups, but having objectives, having actual missions, having games where things happen other than this gang stands over here and shoots, this gang stands over here and shoots, like, then the game can get really, really
it adds to the depth and narrative.
And then there's the whole rolling roads situation in Ashways where you're moving the terrain 6 inches every turn because the gangs are moving down the road. Those games are so much fun.
That sounds awesome. All right. We're getting off topic here. So let's talk briefly about the house organizational structure. So we talked a little bit before, but at the top of the heap, the slag heap, if you will, is currently Lord Maelstrom Orlock, who's the master of the House of Iron. And then below that report in, there's the 4 major houses, which are Orlock, Caymond, Cinderjack, and Medina. And then within each of the clan families, you have the following levels. And this is what you were talking about, Dan. You have road bosses, which are kind of the lords of the ash roads in Necromunda. So they're in charge of everything, the routes between the hive cities and that kind of thing. You have prospectors who are, it's probably it's a profession that's like tried and true within the Orlock organization, considering they were founded from prospectors, right? These are duster clans and ash runners that go out into the expanse trying to find more loot to basically mine. There you have iron riders and gunners, which are the rebels, malcontents, and soldiers of the clan houses. Then you have ore bosses, which, and I love this term, they're edgelords, Dan. And
like Dan.
I love it.
And dig masters of the core mines, wreckers, who are the bold and the brave of the road gangs. You have ash diggers, who are scavengers of the spoil, and then the drudges. And the largest group, as we were talking about before, within any of the house, are the drudges. These are like the serf workers, and they're effectively slaves.
What this reminds me of more than anything is like pre-revolution Russia. So we're talking Russia in the 1800s and the very earliest 1900s, where the serf class of the Russian peasantry was enormous and held down by the aristocrats, and so that it just reminds me a lot of that. And then you look at it a little more, and the Orlocks are clearly analogous with like the Cossack imagery that you would get, the popular riding horses and going into battles and all that stuff. And there's a lot of unsavory stuff about the Cossacks too that we don't really have to bring up right now. But there's clearly a lot of unsavory stuff about the Orlocks. Also, I do want to point out one thing: the head of House Orlock, Lord Maelstrom Orlock, named probably after a Sons of Anarchy character, Clay Morrow, who was played by Ron Perlman in that show.
That so? Yeah, I never really followed that show.
I watched it back in the day when it was on TV.
Yeah, I watched like the first half of
it.
season 1, and then I stopped watching.
Yeah, I mean, I like motorcycles, so I'm they're speaking to me. But like, I just like how there's a lot of really interesting influences on the culture and on the society of House Orlock, from like post Vietnam era biker gangs in the United States to pre 20th century Russian history, all this stuff. It's pretty cool. I'm as far as like how the story and the lore behind these houses, House Orlock seems like the most real world.
Yes, and I'll touch on that too.
Yeah, and so to me that gives them a lot more depth than like House Goliath, which is just a bunch of vat-born super mutants.
Listen,
which,
you better watch your mouth right now.
So yeah, I think that you can have some really cool stories in a gang that's most like the real world.
So the other thing that you were talking about earlier, Dan, was how like if you are not considered an Orlock, you're not really acknowledged. You don't have an identity,
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about the drudges is they are considered Orlocks. So I mean, that's like kind of the first bone they throw you, right? Is like, oh, you have an identity.
You have a name.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very effective propaganda program
for sure.
run by the leaders of House Orlock. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, and the book I was referencing, is Road to Redemption by Mike Brooks.
Oh, I have not read that
which
one.
is a very good book about Necromunda, and that really sets the tone. And yeah, like the Orlocks that the characters meet in that book, they don't even refer to them as humans; they're objects, they're things.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
it's pretty wild. It's a great book. Mike Brooks is
he's a good author.
Tremendous author. He's done a ton of great books, but as far as Necromunda literature out there, it's really good, and it's like a whole novel too. It's not just a short story, so you can really get into it.
So then the next thing we kind of want to talk about is kind of the gangs of legend. And, again, as we were saying earlier, I didn't feel like even going through House of Iron, the book, like I didn't feel like there was a huge amount of depth in it. Like I felt like others had, I don't know. I mean, even
compared to the deep dives we've done with Dalak and Goliath,
I felt like there was those went way deeper. Like this felt much more cursory.
Well, I think that also has to do with the breadth of House Orlock and how they're active pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
And like their interests aren't in Hive Primus primarily.
Maybe, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Where a lot of our story takes place specifically in one hive, and House Orlock is spread further and spread a lot more over the entire planet than just in one place.
So in this, I thought we would talk about, there are some gangs of legend in there, that one that I thought was pretty interesting. I think Josh thought was pretty interesting too. But usually what we do here also is if you have a personal story of your gang and kind of what they're themed around, like that's something.
Oh, I do,
share
Carl.
too. So that's what I figured you would go with, Dan.
That's my gangs of legend is my gang. So we'll get to me.
We'll save that last. I'll go first. I chose the Sons of Iron, and not because the guy's named Carl, because it's spelled incorrectly with a K, but the Sons of Iron, where the leader Carl Scrapjack finds the remains of a Lehman Russ battle tank in the Ash Waste. Okay, so like right there, I have like this great visual where so first off, he finds this thing, he gets it working sort of. But I mean, even a sort of working Lehman Russ battle tank is like I mean, you remember a number of years ago, that guy in Los Angeles basically was driving that tank around downtown LA and crashing into stuff. It was like,
we had a guy in Richmond. We had a guy in Richmond, Virginia, do this about 2-3 years ago, where they're not
stoppable.
Couldn't do anything.
He's running over cars and
let's hope he runs out of gas.
And eventually, that's what happened. They killed the guy. But I mean, my point being, a tank is a legitimate thing for people to rally around. And so this kind of becomes the centerpiece of his road gang as he gathers more vehicles around him and into the fold.
Sounds like a perfect Ash Waste gang right
That's
there.
right. And he calls the tank Iron Lady.
Lehman Russ tank.
And he's using it for raiding up and down the coast of the dry sea. And I just love the idea of like this rundown tank being kind of modeled up, like you could model, and even if you're not able to use it as an actual vehicle in the game, like using it as a piece of terrain or an objective of some sort, or you have to stop it before something occurs with it. I mean, just there's a lot of narrative potential there, but it also just makes for some pretty cool ideas. Like
there are rules for custom heavy vehicles, and that's about as heavy as
as heavy as you get. Yeah. Lehman Russ tanks are no joke.
You could make a pretty gnarly vehicle out of a Lehman Russ in Ash Waste for sure.
I think that would be amazing. Awesome. So I just thought this was like a really cool like concept, and I'm picturing him just like showing up at these settlements, like parking the tank outside the settlement and being like, "You're gonna give us all your stuff." Okay, here's all our stuff. I mean, what else are you gonna do?
Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
what are you gonna do?
Yeah, hit him with seismic weapons, Dan.
And even I mean, like, okay, but you're just like some settlers, out in the ash waste, right? You've got a working isotropic fuel rod and a water still.
You're trying to eke out an existence.
Some slime pools. That you've
never seen a tank in your life.
You've never, and okay, so maybe a couple people have auto guns or like a ancient sniper rifle or a couple of stub guns or whatever, and then you see Carl Scrapjack rolls up in his functional Lehman Russ main battle tank.
That's right.
And what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to say yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, is what you're going to say.
Take my money.
Yeah. So anyway, that was my choice. I thought it was a great narrative piece there. Josh, what about you?
Yeah, I went with the Iron Skulls, and this is largely because me, as a primary Delok player, I had to get the little Delok interaction there. So Iron Skulls are led by Cheros Jal, who was once a Downhive slag miner. So he has raised himself up from the dredges to ganger to gang leader. So he's actually done pretty well for himself in the Orlock way of life here. They were looking to upset the status quo by growing Orlock's territory. And this is in Hive Trazier, which is not Hive Primus, but one of the smaller hives out there. And what they do is they actually steal a Delok land train. So they board this train, and there's this huge.
Awesome.
So there's this massive gunfight as they raid the train from the end of the train, and they work their way up all the way to the kind of locomotive, the engine of it. So it's this huge protracted fight of them just fighting on the train, but then they take control of the train and they crash it into these massive fuel lines that Delok have in this kind of refining processor area. And by completely sabotaging the Delok with their own land train in this act, they actually are able to usurp the Ulanti contract, which is one of the most kind of coveted. It's basically an exclusive contract with one of the actual noble houses on Necromunda, which gives them a ton of money.
See,
for
this
having,
is why they
having
have
this contract
a rivalry. This is why they have a rivalry.
Yeah,
it is.
It's just all about the cash.
No mention of the Delok. They're like, well, whatever. We just sell information now.
Dan, did you ever play the first-person shooter video game that was set in Necromunda?
I did not. No.
There is a point where
I don't play a lot of video games.
There's a point where you are on a train that is underneath the city, and it is massive.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, Dan. What do you got?
So this kicks off a series of events, which ends up getting a bunch of people assassinated by Delok in revenge. So I had to get that in. But yeah,
that's their MO.
Dan, what do you got for your gang?
Okay, so my personal Orlock gang are the Golden Archies, who are McDonald's themed.
Is this McDonald's themed?
Yeah,
Mackies.
Yeah. So in Australia, just so you know, they call it Maccas.
Macas.
Yeah.
So these are Golden Archies. So originally, so I made this gang back when they came out. I think it was 2018 when because Necromunda came out in 2017, and I think they dropped Orlocks in 2018, early 2018. And I originally had them. They were the Hulkamaniacs.
Okay.
I chose that because I had picked the color scheme, which was red shirts and yellow bandanas.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, opposite. Yellow shirts, red bandanas. There we go. Brain, it's working. But
that's right, brother.
But like Hulk Hogan is kind of a bad dude, like not in a cool way, but in a a series of really uncool ways. So I wanted to step back from that, and I went with.
So you went with the corporation McDonald's.
Yeah. I mean they're red and yellow, pal. There's not a ton. What do I go? I could have gone. They could have been the Slim Jims or something. I don't know. But the reason they're the Golden Archies is for joke names.
Sure.
Because just like Blood Bowl, Necromunda, a lot of people have funny, silly names for their gangs, and their silly names for their gangers. And so all my gangers end up being McDonald's menu items. Like my leader is always QPC for quarter pounder with cheese, the best McDonald's menu item. If we're gonna, McDouble's pretty good, but that's one of my champions. Is always McDouble. So it comes. We get it. The reason I did all this is because I wanted to do red.
Does
and yellow.
Eddie the Echo feature?
Eddie the Echo does not feature, but maybe he will in the future. I wanted to do a red and yellow. I really wanted to have brighter colors than I normally do for like 40K or something. And I honestly hate painting these things because they spend so long in the step where they just look like crap. Because there's like multiple layers
phase
of undercoats you have to get. So the ugly phase for these things lasts a really long time, and it I hate it, but I've done like 35 of them now because I don't do magnetizing.
Right.
If I want a different weapon option, I build a whole different model and paint it.
Not for Necromunda. Yeah.
So I have like 35 painted. I have a vehicle painted for them. I have a bunch of stuff, still in sprue and box that I'm going to get to eventually. But they have participated in quite a few campaigns too. They always what'll happens is like generally we'll start out pretty strong in a campaign because as we'll get to when we talk more about how they play on the table, Orlocks are actually a pretty good shooting gang, more than people give them credit for, I think. And so a lot of times my dudes will get out to an early lead in campaigns and start to look like they're a really tough gang, but then like the really character intensive gangs like Van Saar or Goliath gangs will end up trouncing my poor dudes because while Orlocks, they have good shooting and they have some good combat, they're not truly masters when it comes to either one. And so the Golden Arches usually end up at the end of a campaign somewhere in the middle, which is fine. I don't know a ton of people who play Necromunda purely to win. Yeah, it's more of a narrative. It's an RPG with
see what happens.
A lot of dice rolling. And for me, I like going wide in gangs. I like having starting a campaign with at least 7, preferably 8 fighters in the gang. So maybe not the best equipment, but some really good stuff.
But you have a lot of activations too.
Yeah, and so the Golden Archies are a lot of the times, I'm going outlaw as soon as possible if you're doing outlaws or law abiding, because I'm trying to be the heel just like I am in, well, at least my online persona is, maybe not in real life. My online persona of being a heel is, I do it
outside.
In games,
outside, you're a rough customer, but inside you're a big softy, Dan. We know it.
I think my wife and tiny son would agree with you there, but it's. I just like the fact that they're rough and ready, kind of rugged fighters in the game terms, and you can make some surprisingly tough characters too. So it's a lot of fun. And the Golden Archies, while I don't think I've ever quote unquote won a campaign of Necromunda with them, they've done a lot and have had a lot of fun doing so. So it's it's just my little fun passion project when I'm tired of painting, Blood Bowl or 40K, and I want to get frustrated with a paint job for a week.
There you go.
That's when that's
the first time I ran into somebody theming their army like that. That was our buddy Tom, and he and I were playing the Legends of the Old West, the historicals GW game, and he has a gang known. It's called the Jack Daniels gang, and like every character is like. Jack Daniels is the leader. Here's Jim Beam. Here's like every character is named after an alcohol.
Yeah, I love that. That's the kind of fun.
Yeah, it's super cool
that a lot of people like to have in Necromunda that I fully endorse. It's like make it a little silly. Why don't you?
Yeah. All right, so let's talk briefly before we take the first break here. I guess second break, but let's talk about the models here. And there's not a huge selection of models in Necromunda. That's one of the things that's appealing to people about it. A lot of times when people go to get in Necromunda, they're like, oh, well, it's cheap to get into because I don't have to buy many models. I caution you that there are a lot of hidden prices in Necromunda, from the books to the terrain, etc.
Depends how many books you need.
Yeah. So
the Forge World weapon packs that don't exist anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, hey, the plastic ones are out now.
There you go.
As we'll get into.
The plastic kits generally suck.
Oh, do they?
Unfortunately, they took the worst weapon options and give you 4 of them.
Oh,
it's like, let's get some more heavy flamers in there, gang. That's gonna.
Oh, the best weapon in Necromunda.
Well, listen, as we were looking at models, the model I looked at, and bear in mind, like the whole game range is in the specialist line for the most part. So, for me, I chose Slate Merdina and Macula, the Orlock hired gun. And
that's a great model.
First off, he himself is super cool looking with his giant hammer and plasma gun. But what really sold me on this was the paint job on the dog that he has with him, Macula.
The Cyber Mastiff.
Mastiff with like the way they painted it looks like where the arm, the cyber arm connects to the dog looks inflamed, but the dog's also just like super muscular. It looks like a total just mean Rottweiler. It's such a great model. The pose of the guy, the pose of the dog, the snarling face of the dog, the whole thing is just incredible. I think this is like a top tier model in my mind.
I just sent you both my painted version of Macula.
Oh, you have one. Oh, congratulations.
Oh yeah, I painted Slate and Macula like immediately when they came out. I was so excited about that kit. Yeah. It's an excellent kit.
Oh, really Macula looks really good. All right, we'll have to share that on the stream. That's a great picture, Dan.
Yep.
That looks fantastic. Josh, what did you pick?
That's a great doggo. So it is worth, I think, stating here that the Orlock gang is one of the smallest model lines of Necromunda. And they're all pretty small. And by smallest, I mean, it's like 3 models less than the others. But compared to Goliath that had a ton of special characters and things like that have come out with recent expansions, Goliath or Orlock are on the slimmer side of the range.
Agreed.
What I went with was they're in the most recent expansion box for Orlock, the Wrecker. There is the Wrecker with the jump booster, specifically the one that is in like off the ground in flying position.
Yep.
And that for me, it's a Juve with a jetpack. What could go wrong? Give them some grenades, send them out there, like have fun. Speed being such a big deal of Necromunda, I think that it's just a cool model, but it's also a cool idea, and how it works on the tabletop is pretty neat also. So for me, that one just kind of did it for me. Even though a Wrecker is essentially a Juve, which is never like the best. They're pretty cool.
They get shooting skills as primary, those Wreckers, so don't count them out. They're
those are hard to come by now too.
They're probably the best prospect in the game.
I don't doubt that.
their movement is ridiculous. They can fly, which is, you can't say that about a lot of stuff. And they're not like those silly surfboard idiots from Van Sar who can never hide and always get shot immediately because they can't hide. So you just shoot them and they die. Wreckers are much, much better than that with unparalleled mobility. They have some great access to some great skills, and their war gear makes it. I mean, you give them demolition charges and hand flamers, and boys, it's curtains for just about everybody else. I actually do need to do a little bit of backpedaling. Okay. Real quick, very sorry. The Orlock weapon upgrade sprue that you can buy off the GW website is actually good.
Oh, okay. That one's
like
good.
It goes, the quality differs from gang to gang, but the Orlock one is actually very good. So
gotcha. And
if you're into that, go for it.
It should just be mentioned that, Josh, the model you are referring to comes in the Orlock Arms Masters and Wreckers box, right? That's the one you're talking about? The jump back up.
Yeah. So the newer box is Arm Masters and Wreckers, and it's the Wrecker specifically that is in flying position that I'm calling out there.
Yeah,
that whole box set is cool looking though.
I'll take one or two Wreckers in every gang.
Okay.
At the start, because Wreckers are so good. They're just excellent, and they're a lot of fun. And they die, and sometimes they kill themselves, but whatever. It's Necromunda.
Have you had any fall to their death yet?
No. What they do,
they're going down terrain but run out of the vertical.
What they do is I will I generally I like template weapons and I like blast weapons in Necro for obvious reasons, and so when a Wrecker uses their jump booster to move and then uses the template or blast weapon, that weapon gets the unstable trait because they're like flying into their own explosions or flying away from their own explosions, however you want to look at it, and a lot of the times, unstable, if you fail an ammo check, you have to roll a 1, 2, or 3, 4, 5, or 6. If you roll the 1, 2, or 3, you're just out of action. You're just done. So that'll happen, especially with the hand flamer guy. I'm like, I really need that 9 plus D3 inch movement to get in range to roast as many dudes as possible. And I'll roast a bunch of dudes, but then I'll fail that ammo check and fail that unstable roll. And there we are.
Worth it.
There it is.
Worth it.
So Dan, what did you pick?
All right, I got 2 picks. I'm adding one here late in the game here.
Okay.
First one is Vesper Minx Merdana. She is the Ash Wastes special character for Orlocks. She is Slate Merdana's daughter. He's got like I don't know, a dozen daughters, and they're all different flavors of cool. But she's the coolest. She rides on one of the Orlock ATVs. And she has a rapid fire missile launcher.
Dude, the ridiculous,
the
belt fed missiles. How come Space Marines don't get this?
Great question. She's got.
I love that this thing is not turret mounted either. Like she's just hand holding this. Like
she's got a little arm there to help her with the weight. But yeah, it's pretty wild. She's got a special driver too, Big Pete. Who is a Santa Claus-esque biker dude who and like it's just a sick model. I have it. I haven't put it together yet. I'll get there. Don't worry. But yeah, rapid fire missile launcher. What's not to love? But I do have to give a shout out to the regular Orlock gang because this group is perfect. Not just for Orlocks, but to represent any regular people on the table. If you need drivers, if you need gunners, if you need gene stealer cultists, if you need anything, like just get a box of Orlocks, break them up, kit bash them. They're perfect for all that stuff.
These would be really good for my upcoming
what's even better?
Chaos in Chaos Guard.
The Outcast box, which they discontinued very quickly, is just like the perfect box of Hive Scum. There's not a lot of variety on the sprue, but you get 12 dudes.
But you're right. Looking at that just Orlock gang box, Dan, that's a solid group of positions there. It
is a great kit bash bash box for anybody who's interested in Necromunda or 40K and they don't want to just have regular old models. It is one of the highest quality kit bash boxes since the Empire flagellants of the days of yore.
Yes, I used that a lot. Yep.
Everybody did, Carl. Everybody did.
Everybody.
Yeah. So those are my picks.
Very cool.
I'm going to throw a quick honorable mention out to the Cyber Mastiffs out of the box of Wreckers and whatever, the Master of Arms.
Yeah.
Because a lot of gangs can use Cyber Mastiffs. They're exotic pets. A lot of gangs can add them up there. They count as bodyguards. They just help keep your dudes alive, and they look cool. So that's my honorable mention.
The Cyber Mastiff is actually one of the pets that I think is worth it too in the game, because a lot of the pets are vanity buys that don't really do much of anything. But
listen, don't you talk bad about my Sump Croc.
I didn't say anything. They
do a little work. Yeah.
But the Cyber Masters actually they stop their owner from being subject of a coup de grace.
Yeah.
So
that's a big deal.
Which is actually super thematic for a dog too, right?
Yeah. It's a huge deal. So very, very useful, very good way to keep your expensive, important characters alive.
Right on. All right, on that note, let's take a short break. We'll come back and we'll finish up with Orlock. Be right back. All right, we're back, and we're going to continue talking about House Orlock here, or the House of Iron, I should say. Next up, so actually playing the gang. And Dan, I have not played this gang.
Oh boy,
I've played against them. But this is why we had you join. this is other than your good looks and charming demeanor. This is the number one reason we had you join us for this particular episode.
Well, I'm happy to be here. For games, for looks, for charm,
and I'll tell you because we had Campbell on for the Goliath episode.
The Goliath, yeah.
Of which I play Goliath, so that helped me. At that time we had made the promise to you that we would bring you on when we did the Orlock one, and as it was coming up in our rotation, we were like, we have to have Dan on here. We promised.
Yeah.
So
here we are.
And there's so many better people to talk about Orlocks too, right? There's so many internet personalities who know a ton about Necromunda.
Not in our mind.
I'm the obvious choice, is what I'm saying.
That's exactly right. So the next thing is really about units and kind of picking your favorite unit. model that you would use. And again, this kind of overlaps with the previous thing we were just discussing. It could be a favorite model. It could be the performance of the model or other factors. Basically, these are just models you would want to field in your gang regardless. Like as you said, Dan, like you always take, these wreckers, right? Like, so let's
really good.
Let's start with Dan then, and we'll go in reverse order. So Dan, like what did you pick for this here?
So I'm actually zagging a little bit here because because honestly, you guys had picked all the ones I would talk about.
That's okay. That's fine. This is free form.
And so I'm going to mention the combat shotgun. So the combat shotgun is, in my opinion, the second best basic weapon of the game after the blunder pole in the Cawdor range. It has two modes of fire. It has a template, which, D6 hits.
Always good.
It's only strength 2, but it's real dang good, y'all, for pinning a bunch of people and for causing a lot of mayhem. And then it has a 12-inch range, strength 4, damage 2. I don't think it has AP, but it does have knockback. So it can even get to damage 3, which gets it kind of wild when you do, or, pops people off of gantries and buildings and stuff. It's a really, really good weapon. Normally 70 credits. Orlocks get it for 55. They get a 15 credit discount on this weapon, which is wild.
Yeah, that's actually significant. As I was just putting together my Goliath,
good to supply the metal
and running out of points, I was like, "Oh boy, these are expensive."
Yeah. So the combat shotgun is just an incredible weapon. It gets even better when you give it to an arms master with the shotgun savant skill. Shotgun savant gives it's just bravado skill, which is the Orlock specific skill. It gives long range, short range to all your attacks. Okay. So you give a combat shotgun up to 12 inch, you're getting a +1 to hit. And when you have a native ballistic skill 3 up, do the math, that's a 2 up to hit at 12 inches, which is for Necromunda really good.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're listening and you don't play Necromunda, like 12 inches is a long range in Necromunda. I mean, think about, you're usually in kind of twisting and winding corridors and that kind of thing when you're not playing Ash Waste, right? Or even there.
And it's a small scale
even with Ash, you can still have have
things in the way
in Ash Waste.
Exactly.
Yeah. You don't need to have these big open battlefields. But even if you do, you should have weather effects going, so you're not seeing across the entire
But my point is, in like 40K, for instance, a 24-inch range feels like kind of short sometimes. Yeah. In Necromunda, 12 inches is pretty. You're like, I'm in range.
Templates come into play in Necromunda all the time.
Yes,
which is also why the combat shotgun is so good. Is because if you're within that 9-inch, 8-inch range, the template is. I mean, it's the preferred way to go because it auto hits. Yeah. And in Necromunda, you have the pinning mechanic, right? And hitting more than one person.
Probably a terrible ballistic skill.
Right, exactly. And hitting more than one person with an attack is always a good thing.
Yes.
And so the combat shotgun gives you both a powerful medium range shot and also an extremely effective template weapon. So huge fan of the combat shotgun.
Good to know.
Here.
Good to know. I mean, I think that's actually a really great point. Like, we should open this up in the future to weapon selections as well, because, knowing what the right thing to take is. I've been building my Goliath and I haven't played in a long time. And I'm like, was this a good weapon? I can't remember.
It makes a lot of sense for Orlock too, because they don't have as much of the special stuff with, Delock psychic powers and Goliath gene smithing, as we'll get into. So discounts on weapons and how they specialize is a big part of what makes them who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, what about you, Josh? What'd you pick here?
Yep. So I went with the speedy choices. So speed is everything in Necromunda as far as how I like to play the game, especially when you're not just doing a gang confrontation, just a shootout, like you're actually playing a mission. You want to grab a loot crate. You want to get something. You need to drag it back off to your table quarter, off the board, something like that. So the Orlock Outrider Quad in Ash Waste came in the box set there, and just it's fast. It has dedicated gunner. It's actually really fast. It's more than twice the speed of some of the heavier vehicles that are like a 5-inch base. This is a 9-inch base, has a dedicated gunner, so it gets to move, gets to shoot, and it's very good at doing that. So it can go around, it can harass, it can have a lot of fun with it, and it's just a cool thing. It's a quad out in the dunes. It's
got two very good weapons that come in the box too, and it can take just about any heavy weapon you want. But the heavy bolter is one of the best weapons in Necromunda. Full stop. And you can grab one of those. And on the Orlock Outrider Quad, it's pretty much always going to be in short range, which is 18 inches. So you'll get that 3 up to hit, which is real nice. But you can also get. Yeah, that's right. The harpoon gun.
Yes,
now, is the harpoon gun any good in Necromunda? No, it's trash. However, it is one of the most thematic and fun guns that you can get in the game, where not only can you harpoon a dude, but you can harpoon the dude behind the dude you already done harpooned, and then you can drag the last person you harpoon forward, which is a lot of fun when it's like somebody standing on the back of a big rig and your Outrider Quad rolls up and you're playing like a rolling roads map, and like getting back on a rolling roads is an intelligence check, and y'all, intelligence is low across the board in Necromunda.
The education system is not robust.
It's not good, no. And so you get that sweet harpoon on a dude with like a special weapon or something who's like sitting on the back of the big rig plinking around, and you're just like, harpooned, pull him off, and that might kill him. The harpoon might kill him, that might kill him. It's tons of fun. Is it the optimal choice? Absolutely not. But is it my first choice? Absolutely yes.
It's the fun choice. Yes.
I just love hearing Dan say harpoon.
Harpoon.
It's a great word.
I'm from the East Coast. I'm from the Mid-Atlantic. We got a little bit of accent over here, so
well, listen.
Keep your ears open. You keep your ears open, you might hear it.
We talked earlier about this set, and I feel like it's redundant now, but that Orlock Armsmaster and Wrecker set was for me in particular, and I don't even know how this guy functions, but I love this model that Armsmaster. I'm assuming this is the Armsmaster upper left corner with the massive hammer and the three fingered giant hands.
Okay.
Awesome.
So he's got a full servo harness on.
Yeah, he does. You can see it along his legs.
Yeah, which gives him increased toughness and strength, and the arc hammer is like crazy. It's one of the best weapons in Necromunda, and it's only available to Armsmasters. And it doesn't show up in the trading post or the black market or anything. It's just available to Armsmasters. It's fully sick. But the Armsmaster is such a cool character because he's like the sub leader of the gang, who is subservient to the road boss, but also is in charge of keeping all the weapons and armor and of everybody working in the gang at all times. And this guy is so chunky. Like, I have him. So they give you 2 Armsmasters in the box, and I have him built in the 2 ways: one with the shotgun and one with the full servo harness and arc hammer. He is prohibitively expensive for a starting gang.
That's kind of what I figured.
That's like a 350 point character.
Oh my god, that's a ton of points in Necromunda.
Yes,
that's a third of a gang starting
because you start out with 1,000
credits.
So you're not gonna spend a third of it on one dude. But
aren't I?
He'll get that good. He'll get that good at some point. But let's quickly talk about the arc hammer real quick, right? So it is a versatile weapon which with 1-inch range, so it doesn't have to be in base space to hit. It's strength +3. AP 1, damage 3 with pulverize, which pulverize can turn flesh wounds into better results. So yeah, it's one of the best weapons of the game. And while the Armsmaster isn't one of the best close combat characters in the game, if you still get him the arc hammer, he gets real scary. However, I usually grab an arc.
One hit is pretty much a. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, yeah, because strength 6 coming in, you're wounding Goliath on 3s, you're wounding everybody else on 2s, and damage 3 in combat, where you're more than likely to die anyways, is
I think
killer.
I think damage 3 at that point is actually a guaranteed out of action.
I think so too. So the other arms master though with just a shotgun is usually the one I take every gang because he's actually pretty cheap with just the shotgun and the shotgun savant skill.
Yeah,
because he can take the bravado skills as a primary, and he turns into a very cheap, very effective character. And he doesn't have like the super flashy weapon that you'll see on a lot of champions, but he's got a reliable one that can reach out and touch people on a 2-up at 12 inches. And the other side of Shotgun Savant is for if you have the multi-damage, multi-shot effect, you can re-roll the dice roll. So if you roll that 1 or 2 for how many shots his shredder ammo gets, you're like, not this time. Roll it again. Oh, is that a 6? Great. So yeah, excellent choices, guys. Excellent choices.
It's a great model range. I mean, as small as it is, every model's fantastic looking.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So next up, I think you guys wanted me to talk a little bit about legendary names.
Yeah, and bravado skills.
Yes. So the bravado skills are not the best, honestly. There are some good ones. As we talked about, the shotgun savant is very, very good in turning a standard combat shotgun or a regular shotgun into a really scary weapon.
So actually, before you start, I mean, like we should mention, because I think Josh framed this really well, where like Goliath have gene smithing, Dalak have psychoteric whispers. This is their equivalent. Like they get the bravado skills and legendary names, because gene smithing is pretty amazing for Goliath.
It is, and I will reveal to you why legendary names is better in just a bit.
Okay.
So each gang gets their own set of skills. Orlocks get the bravado skills, and like I said, there's a couple of good ones in here. Gilder Contacts is really strong if you plan on taking a lot of Hive Scum, because it just reduces the cost by D6 times 10 credits to
super
a minimum
in a campaign.
Which means you're getting
more cheap
bodies every game, which is really, really useful. They have a hanger on that you can take called the Prize Fighter, which is just free credit generation. And so he's the first thing you pick up as soon as you get into a campaign. You grab a prize fighter and you'll get extra money after every game. It's great. But Shotgun Savant is the other one that is really good in the bravado skills. The other ones really aren't worth mentioning. But let's talk about legendary names. So each gang gets their own special sauce that they can use during the campaigns. And the two best are legendary names and then the Cawdor Faith Point system, which I can't remember what that's called off the top of my head at this moment. But it's the reason they're the best is because they're free. Legendary names, your champions and your leader get to take them at gang creation. So it's like having an extra skill for free. And they can level up and get legendary names during the campaign. So like gene smithing for Goliaths, you're paying for that. Like psychoteric whispers for Dalak, you're paying for that. For the Vansar fake body part stuff, which is not a good system and are generally bad, except for the one that makes your eyes really good, you're paying a lot for that. For the Escher Chem Alchemy, tons of fun, very expensive. Legendary names, totally free. You can, as they level up, they will add value to your gang, but your champions and leader get them for free at gang creation. So you're always using them. And gang, there are some bangers in here. Let me get to my thing here. So we have, I think, 3 categories: unbelievable escapes, impressive leadership, and improbable beatdowns. Unbelievable escapes usually gives you your best here. Bullet Dodger is really good because it's once per battle you can just force a reroll of a successful hit.
Nice.
So like, your dude got hit by like a 5-up or a 6-up Hail Mary shot. Did he?
Yeah.
Did
nice.
he?
Nice.
Ironheart
deal.
Ironheart is usually the one I take on my leaders. So it counts the first serious injury or out of action scored each game as a flesh wound instead. So it functionally gives him another wound.
Yeah.
And Orlock leaders already come with 3 wounds. So now we're talking about a functional 4-wound leader at gang creation. Very hard to deal with.
For free.
Right? For free, yes. You have Lucky, which is really good. It just can once per battle turn a dice to a 6. I mean, there's little drawbacks in all of these.
Sure.
Like Iron Stare is usually the one I give my arms master with the shotgun, and this one is you have to pass a cool check to shoot him. However, if you he never counts as the closest fighter for purposes of target priority, so you can always shoot him if you want to.
Yeah.
So like. There's a lot of cool stuff in here, and you can make it as thematic as you want to, like Promethean proof killer. Like, let's say one of your guys in a game does, like, he gets set on fire, but he like doesn't die. He puts it out, and he comes back, and he starts messing people up.
Dude, being
like,
on
maybe
fire
that's
is the worst.
Yeah, maybe that's
it's so fun.
It really is. Or if you play a lot of, if a couple of your friends have Cawdor gangs and you're going to be worrying about being on fire all game, maybe you take it at gang creation so you don't have to anymore. So yeah, it's a really good system that again is free and can pump up your characters to some really cool heights right off the bat. And then of course you can level up to it later in the campaign if you want to, which after a while will be useful because skills, there's generally for your characters, for your builds, there's like a couple you want to take, and then after that you're going to be taking a lot of stat increases, but those stat increases can get very expensive after a while, as far as except for Juves and Wreckers. But so for your bigger characters it might be better to be grabbing some impressive names, some legendary names rather, before you dip back into stat increases.
That's so skills. Interesting. That is so interesting.
Yeah, it is a good system. The Cawdor system is better because it's always free and it's always on and it happens every turn of every game. But this system I'd say is probably the second best because it's just straight up free. Now, like the Goliath stuff, like is really good because you can like start the game with a bunch of toughness 5 dudes, which like sucks, but is really strong. But you're paying for that. You're paying a lot for that. And so if you do that, you're going to end up starting the campaign with 5 characters, and at that point, just play Ogrins.
I think I need to go back and rebuild my gang.
Very good Dan. System. Yeah.
Do you have 5 guys?
No, it's not that many. I think I have 6.
Okay. Well,
I think I need to tone down a couple guys.
Outcasts. I have 11 guys starting in my Outcast gang. They are so bad, but it's going to be so fun. I
definitely
when I have so many bodies that are terrible.
Get them in short range with those stub guns, man. +2 to hit. It'll work. It'll get there eventually.
There is nothing worse than running out of activations and watching your opponent like activate.
Yeah, that's why I don't
5 or 6 times.
All right. It's the price you pay for Goliath. Okay.
What's next?
Gang and competition. So, like, how does the gang actually play in a campaign, right? Like, how?
All right.
Competition doesn't really. I mean, it doesn't go beyond the campaign, right? It's not. You don't rock up to tournaments for these games. You're typically playing a
I would
campaign.
Never. I don't play. You don't play Necromunda for tournament.
No, you would never. You would never do that. It's just not the way to play. So how does it play in a campaign for you?
So the campaign, like I said, they start off pretty strong. Orlocks do. They don't have the staying power of like a Goliath gang or a Vansar gang can often have. But you generally want to go pretty wide and have a couple of real tough characters, right? So you've got access to the ferocity skills, I think. Yeah, ferocity skills. So you can have True Grit, Unstoppable, Nerves of Steel, oftentimes on the same character, which a lot of the times I'll try to, True Grit is a really good one to decrease the amount of damage that comes in functionally because you're rolling 1 fewer damage dice. Or if it's the damage dice was 1, you're rolling 2, and then you get to pick. Okay, which is very, very good, especially on a character with 3 wounds.
Especially the way flesh wounds work now.
Yeah, and Unstoppable actually is really good for that because you're on a 4-up. You're just dropping flesh wounds. You're just getting rid of them in the recovery phase. So really, it's really possible to make extremely tough characters. Not with the toughness skill, but within the game mechanics themselves. Yeah. So you can get some really gnarly champions and leaders and stuff. But with Orlocks, you got to remember that your gangers are pretty much expendable. right? They're usually combat shotgun caddies. like you want to keep those ones alive because that's an expensive gun that you don't want to lose. But for the most part, the rest of them you're kitting out with like auto guns or regular shotguns or pistols or something to play the action economy role.
Okay.
So within a campaign, just like any other gang, Orlocks can run away with it and be super powerful. That's just a feature or a bug, depending on your perspective of Necromunda. But the Orlocks, they really are the masters of the short range firefight. So you've got access to combat shotguns. You've got access to all these good bolter weapons. You've got plasma on your champions and leaders. You've got just a ton of options when it comes to getting within 12 inches or shorter of your enemy. They aren't really going to outrange like the really good ranged gangs like Vansar or Escher. When an Escher gang rolls up with 10 5-point las guns and you're just like, oh god, just 18-inch pinning all the time. Yeah, it can get frustrating after a while. But one of the things that Orlocks can do also on their leader and arms masters is take smoke grenades. Right, smoke grenades are the best thing in the game. A lot of people don't take them because
I take them on Goliath all the time. I throw them out there, let me get in close combat.
Exactly, and they work just like that for Orlocks. So generally, with Orlocks, you want to be in the close range firefight rather than close combat. However, it always pays to have a couple of counterchargers as far as characters go. I usually kit out my leader as a countercharger, give him like a servo fist and a plasma pistol or servo fist bolt pistol, just so if stuff that's mean does get close, he can charge in and cause enough, and he's good enough at combat that he can like mess up a Goliath leader or champion or something. You don't want him to be out in front, but you want him to be him second line so he can react to what's going on.
That's interesting.
But there's also like Orlocks, they get the sickest combi weapon, the Bolter Melta, which is honestly one of the best weapons in the game because you've got the reliability. The accuracy of the bolter mixed with the just insane damage output of a Melta. So like you've got a lot of options with Orlocks. And again, they're not the best shooting, but they're not the worst shooting. They're not the best combat, but they're not the worst combat. They're right there in the middle, and allows you to play against your opponent's weaknesses. Like if it's a Goliath gang, I can outshoot a Goliath gang.
Yeah, Goliath aren't that great at shooting. They need to get in close. I'm hesitant to even put ranged weapons on Goliath guys.
Yeah, if it's an Escher gang or a Vansar gang, I will get up in their faces as quickly as possible using smoke grenades as cover, and we'll get there because those gangs will fold when you get close, right?
So why is it you were saying kind of earlier in the campaign you were playing, you always kind of peter out, like you start off strong, but then begin to run out of steam as the campaign gets to its final stages? Like, what is it that causes that for you?
So a lot of times your Goliath gangs are going to run away with it with a bunch of toughness 6 characters with like power fists and renderizers and stuff. With everybody's got Nerves of Steel, and you're just like, what do I even do against this? A lot of times you're going to run into a Goliath gang. Generally, when I arbitrate, I tell people that they can't take duplicate skills in their starting list because I don't want to see
that's a good idea.
A Goliath gang with 3+ 3 or more Nerves of Steel characters right off the bat because that's just no fun.
It also individualizes every model, right? I think that's one of the strengths of Necromunda is that you're playing very individuals as opposed to like 40K. It's like I've got a squad of 10 Marines. They're all the same except for these 2 guys. Like everybody is unique in Necromunda.
Right. Yeah.
So you'll get there at the end of a campaign with Goliath. Right. Everybody has Nerves of Steel. Everybody has toughness 6, and it's just like, all right, well, there's not a whole lot I can do about that. Same with like Vansar, when everybody has like heavy carapace armor and the stupid energy shields they get, and the best plasma Melta BS out there.
Yeah.
Like and everybody's got crack shot and fast shot and trick shot, and it's like, oh, so cover doesn't matter. You can shoot twice, and you get short range at long range. Cool.
So awesome. At the top end, they're probably not holding up as well as the other gangs that are making it to the
right, because they're generalists. Orlocks are generalists. So at
that makes
the early
sense.
part of the campaign, you're going to have a lot more success when everybody's finding their footing, because they're strong off the bat. Orlocks generally.
So beat your opponent down early.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's what you want to do.
try to kill off their guys instead of just having them taken out of action.
Be as
go for leaders and champions as early as you can.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's right.
Just take everybody else out.
Dan, the last campaign we played, we have like the major days where we would have like these battles, and then you'd have like these little skirmishes, one-off skirmishes. And this one-off skirmish with our buddy Doug, I lost both of my champions and my boss, like all in one, and not just out of action, like dead. I was like, my gang was destroyed in this little. It was supposed to just be this little. I was like, oh,
I usually let players re-rack at that point. Like if they're down to like under 500 or something.
We did the ultimate re-rack. We did COVID. that put an end to the campaign.
Just shut
that actually COVID killed a campaign for me too. For Necromunda, which sucks, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
They're a lot of fun. Orlocks are a lot of fun. In Ash Wastes, they are very good. If you're gonna play outside, the Orlock Outrider Quad is a really good vehicle.
Dude, the way you talk about Ash Waste gets me so pumped for it.
Ash Waste is
next campaign. That's happening.
Ash Waste is fully sick.
We were kind of waiting till everybody got vehicles before we do that. Not everybody has them.
I needed pin on my terrain, but I also want everybody to have vehicles.
Yeah. So the Orlock Outrider Quad is really, really like it's priced to move. It's excellent. Has good guns. Has great rules. And I say full send on those if you're an Orlock player. You can get. They have a relatively cheap crew guy at like 35 credits. So you can get vehicles quick, right? Great. Just all around good gang. When it comes, and a lot of times in the Ash Waste, your visibility is like 12 inches, or fewer, even if you're playing against nomads. Though nomads generally want a lot of visibility because they're weirdly a better shooting gang than they are a combat gang. They kind of stink in combat, which sucks when they're like, we're going to manipulate the range. Oh, but wait, we want to be long range.
Right.
It's like, that's not great synergy there. But in the Ash Waste, when you're working a lot of the times with 24-inch or 18 or 12-inch visibility, a gang that is really strong at 12-inch shooting is going to do real well. So Orlocks can definitely put the herd out in the Ash Waste. It's just fun. It's just fun to go wide with weapons that are loud and templates and rapid fire and all these fun rules. And you're not going to get the precision strikes that las guns give you, but who cares? You got combat shotguns, you got bolters, you got auto guns. You're going to get there. Don't worry about it.
Very cool.
Listen, have the heart of the dice. Trust in the rapid fire. Trust in the firepower dice. You never run out of ammo. What are you talking about? Ammo? We got plenty. We're Orlocks.
That's why I keep rolling dark packs with chaos
every time
out of ammo. All right, so moving on. There's again not a lot of supplements here in Black Library books as well. There is a Black Library book currently available called Necromunda Underhive, which is a collection of short stories, and within there is a short story. You can also just buy the short story separately in digital format called Dirty Dealings that deals with an Underhive rogue named Cora Zek and her comrades who are trying to make a delivery of weapons to an Orlock stronghold. So, of course, that's going to go smooth. And then you talked about Road to Redemption. I looked that one up while you were talking about it, and it's by Mike Brooks. But really the focus of that is a guy from House Cawdor, but I assume he comes across some Orlock in that.
Yes. Just in the first part of the book, just for a little bit, there are some interactions with Orlocks, and the Orlocks are very rude.
Yeah, well,
very rude. But that book actually has a lot of Delac stuff in it too.
Oh, cool.
As the other protagonist in the story is Delac, and that you get some really cool insight into Delac culture also.
I think where Cal Jericho has some stuff with that with Orlock as well.
where I thought it was very interesting. It seems that everybody in House Orlock is outwardly, at least, non-binary.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which I thought was a very interesting take on it. And I don't know if it's a house thing where they don't want people to know any personal details about them or anything, or if
that was
if
always
that's
the
just
sense
their
I
culture.
got. That was always the sense I got. Yeah.
It's interesting questions, interesting societal implications there. And Mike Brooks is a very good author, so I would just highly recommend anybody who likes reading about Necromunda. That's my top pick.
Cool.
Yeah,
all right.
Necromunda
I'll
books.
definitely have to check that one out.
And then in terms of supporting supplements for it, I mean, we have the House of Iron, which we've been talking about this whole time, which if you're going to play Orlocks, you need it. The Zone Mortalis Gang Tactics cards, you're going to probably want those as well. They're super helpful.
If you are going to play Orlock, what you need are two things book-wise, really. You need to have the new rulebook.
Yep.
The big one that they released 2 years ago or last year or whenever. And you need to have House of Iron. And that's really all you need.
Yeah.
Tactics cards.
They're nice to have.
They're nice to have. I personally don't like using them at all. I think they kind of stink in the game. But the tactics cards are printed as dice rolls in the House of Iron book.
Yeah.
Right. So you can use that.
Correct. I think that's all the house books are the same. Yeah.
Yes, it is. So you don't need to buy packs of tactics cards. I would recommend you don't. Just use the printings in the back of the books. All you really need are those. But they're also, if you want to play Ash Waste, then the Book of the Outlands will do it for you. Which has all the rules for like the custom vehicle creation and has rules for like the Outrider quad and all that stuff. So if you're going to play Ash Waste, that's the only book you need to play Ash Waste.
Right.
You don't need the Ash Waste rulebook. All the stuff in the Ash Waste rulebook is reprinted or tweaked slightly in Outlands. The only thing the Ash Waste rulebook has that Outlands doesn't have is Ash Waste rulebook has the expanded weather tables.
Okay.
So in Outlands, they have the simplified
Somebody
weather
has
tables.
to have it.
Yes, somebody will have it. You don't need to use the expanded weather tables, but I think it's fun.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know if it's worth it to pick up the book for that when you can just pick up Outlands to get everything.
Right.
But I have both, and I end up using the expanded weather tables quite a bit.
They're also mentioned in Necromunda Apocrypha, which is the campaign book that came out. So
yes,
again, not required, but this is where you can find more information on.
There's a bunch of missions and stuff that are maybe not Orlock specific, but they feature Orlock characters and stuff in them. So,
and now I have this section under Forge World support, but Forge World's not really a thing anymore. It's now just all specialist games and
supplemental support.
The whole thing is there. So, I mean, you know what I would say rather than go down this list is I'd say take a look at GW's site.
Yeah, go to the GW website.
And if you
put
can
in Orlock,
find what you're looking for, type in Orlock. That's literally all you need to do.
But everything that you want for an Orlock gang is available right now.
Yep.
And there's only 23 things, including the upgrades and card sets and all that. So it's pretty limited range. So very easy to check out.
I would say if you are Orlock curious or you're going to dive in, you can get away with one box of Orlock, the Orlock gang, the Orlock Arms Masters and Wreckers box, and the Orlock Weapons and Upgrades, and you're good to go. Not counting books. In books, you need House of Iron and the rule book itself. So it's relatively light as far as money commitments and time commitments for getting all this stuff going. And then if you want to dip your toes in Ash Waste, you just pick up the Outrider quad box. And maybe a second Orlock gang box. You never need more than one Arms Masters and Wreckers box. Don't buy more than one, just one. I have bought like 4 or 5 Orlock gang boxes, but I am a psychopath because I have I have like 35 of them built, and then I have a bunch that I'm going to be using for converting for vehicle crew for when I do the other vehicles I'm working on.
That was such a super great tip on the Orlock gang box, though. Looking at that,
they're perfect, man. They're perfect.
For a number of things.
Yeah. So, you don't have to be a psychopath with me. You don't have to get the extra heads, though. I got the extra heads. There are a lot of fun stuff, fun ones in there. I did get the Ash Waste upgrade kit purely for the backpacks because I wanted to put backpacks on my heavy weapons guys just to make them bulkier.
They also look
in
cool.
In Necro 95, your heavies, they were called heavies. They all had like packs and were slinging ammo around and were just bigger and bulkier than your regular gangers. And I miss that. And so I've been putting the backpacks on my specialists with heavy weapons just to make them look bigger. It has worked out. They look great.
Cool. Bit more visually balanced too. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and like I said, the Orlock upgrade pack in plastic is worth it. Don't build heavy flamers. Don't build heavy flamers. Don't build heavy flamers. But everything else, heavy bolters are an excellent weapon in the game right now. Everything else in here, two-handed hammer stinks, but I always take my two-handed hammer guy because he's the coolest model I own in Necromunda, and
he's a good counter
and one
charge.
of these. Listen. No, he's not. He's terrible because they're -1 to hit. He hits on 5s. One of these days, he's going to hit in combat. Oh, one of these days,
It'll be glorious.
He's going to do it. He's going to hit, and he's going to absolutely paste somebody, and it's going to be sick. And I'll tell you guys when it happens. It hasn't happened yet. I've taken him. I've taken him in 3 campaigns so far, and he usually dies like permanently dead within the first couple of games because he runs at people with a giant two-handed hammer. And when he does get into combat, he can't hit because he's got like 2 attacks that hit on 5s, and you're just like, "All right, here we go."
It's a good distraction piece, though.
So Dan,
people do love killing him. That's sure.
The final section we have here is and you've kind of answered a lot of this, I think, for us is why is the gang fun and what makes it kind of unique. I think.
Well, again, it's the kind of gang that you play when you want to do a little bit of counterplaying. When it comes to campaigns, where you're going to look at your opponent's gang and say, what are they bad at, and then use that against them. They're better at shooting than Goliath. They're better at combat than Van Sar, and they're somewhere in the middle. And so you can have a lot of fun with that. Is it the best like beginner gang? Probably not, because if you're going to win games in Necromunda, you need to be, you need to be a little bit of a counterpuncher, which is always harder to master than just going with one thing and doing it well. So there are definitely easier gangs to play. The Goliaths and Van Sar come to mind than Orlocks, but I always get a kick out of like going up against those more powerful gangs or whatever, and just beating the tar out of them because I know how to manipulate the terrain, the rules, or know how to get around their strengths and target their weaknesses.
Right.
I always get a kick out of that kind of stuff. So they're a fun group. They have great models, cool rules, and tons of room for characters.
So I take back my first note here, which is, as I said, I think Dan really likes him because he's modeled for the cover photo of House of Iron. But
they also have a really good female representation in Orlocks. So there's a supplemental pack you can get with 3 female gangers with different weapons, and then there's another one that they only sell at Warhammer World, but you can find it on like eBay or something. That is the female characters with different loadouts.
Interesting.
So you can have like up to 6 or potentially even more of unique female characters in your gang.
Nice.
And they're explicitly female too. Oh, and you have female wreckers too that come in the wreckers box. And so if you're looking for non-Escher female representation in a Necromunda gang, then Orlocks are your best bet. Eschers obviously are going to be there. But
all female.
But if you're not if you're not feeling the Escher aesthetic, then you can do so with Orlocks too.
Yeah. So for
Dillock are about 50-50 presenting, but non-binary through lore.
Right.
So my
Outcasts have a few also.
My points here were really that, like, I have to admit, like, for the Underhive, like, I'm not this gang doesn't really appeal to me that much. I think I think they're not weird enough for me. Like in terms of Necromunda, like I really dig like the weirdness of Necromunda, but I think once you take them out of the Underhive and into the Ash Waste, I'm almost like jealous that I'm not playing this army in the Ash Waste, because I think that they're such the best fit for that in terms thematically, like visually and thematically. that change of venue for me all of a sudden makes that group work. It's like,
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I feel that.
yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, like you look at the original Mad Max film.
exactly.
Yep.
Not one of the sequels, but the original one when they weren't so far from the apocalypse. You
Right.
know what I mean? Where they're still, wearing mostly clothes, everybody.
Yep.
And the Orlock design language comes directly from that. So yeah, I totally get it. The idea of the roving faction of raiders or, caravan guards or whatever you want to do, the people on the move fighting, is a very strong design language for the Orlocks. And I get that.
It's super cool. It's super cool.
Yeah.
And people should play Ash Wastes. Ash Wastes. I know it can be daunting, that it's a big system within a system situation. I know some people poo-poo it. There's somebody. I mean, I write for Goonhammer.
I don't know why
I'm a part owner of Goonhammer, and we had one of our writers, one of our contributors, poo-pooing Ash Wastes in a recent State of Necromunda article, which is to me a completely insane take. But people are allowed to have their own terrible opinions.
The only bad thing I've heard is the unkillable Ridge Hauler.
The Ridge Hauler, the Cargo 8 can be a problem, but with a little bit of arbitrary tweaking, you can make it so that a gang has to work really hard to get one, or you can just say, hey, you can't buy one in the first.
Make it a mission
phase of the campaign.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, not part of a gang, part of a mission.
Josh,
exactly.
Thoughts?
Yeah, so very similar to you. I think Orlock really do come to life in the Ash Wastes, which we are reading our notes here. Very similar here. They definitely struck me as jack of all trades, master of none, which kind of reinforces what Dan was saying until you get up to that close range firefight, which is cool that they have the punch counter punch for being able to outpunch the shooty guys and outshoot the punchy guys. It's a pretty cool gang. Aesthetically, they're not my favorite. I similarly like the weird stuff. So I've got the Outcasts, I've got Enforcers, just being the dirty cops, and then the Dalak, of course, being my special brand of sweetness. I think they absolutely have to be there. Like they're kind of the baseline, and then everybody does something weird and specialized from there. So it's a great gang to have in the collection.
I have Doug's painted Cotter army or Cotter gang as well.
Oh yeah.
So maybe someday I'll play that. They're weird.
So much
They're
fire.
super weird. Yeah. All right. Well, let's do this. We're going to take a short break. We'll come back and then we'll close out the show. All right, we're back. We're here to close out the show. Dan, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Honestly, you saved us a ton of research.
It's an honor. It's an honor to be here once again.
Oh man, we love you and Campbell so much. So
absolutely.
Tell for the uninitiated, tell us a little bit about the 40K Badcast.
Yeah, sure. So Campbell, who has been on the show also, and I do a show called the 40K Badcast. We are up to almost episode 150 on that. We release about every 2 weeks. I'm working on 147 right now. That'll be out probably before this show drops. But you can reach us at Badcast, 40kbadcast.com. We have the Patreon, we have the merch store, we have all of it. But if you're new to the show, if you're interested in checking it out, 40kbadcast.com is where to go. We try to keep it light. We try to keep it fun as far as our coverage of the hobby goes. Campbell and I are hobbyists first and gamers second. So we're very big into painting and the more narrative aspects of the game. And we keep it light. We do say cuss words. So those of you who listen to podcasts in the car with your family might not want to turn on the 40K Badcast. Yeah. We work a little blue, but we're just trying to keep it light, trying to have a good time. Yeah. You can come down and have a couple of yucks. Yeah,
a lot of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. I got to tell you, and I'm not just saying that because you're here. I listen to very few gaming, especially 40K related podcasts, because I tend to avoid being influenced by what other people are doing as we're kind of forging our own path here. But when I do see your episodes drop, like I immediately go, oh, I'm going to listen to this. So just so you know, I really do enjoy your show.
Always fun, and you guys have me more pumped for 40K from listening to your show than anything else out there.
Certainly more than listening to our show.
We consider Carl, you and Josh and Justin and Adon and Jeff and all the cast of IC characters. We consider you guys not only huge influences on us, but also great friends to us.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, we're good friends.
We like to think of we're like the younger cousin of the ICs. In that we're a little wild, we're a little crazy.
The black sheep of the family.
There you go. Yeah,
you guys could be the black sheep of the family. And listen, we're
the one to show up to Thanksgiving a little late with a case of beer.
That's right.
All right.
We're looking forward to adopting Campbell for a while once you guys take a break.
He's gonna do great. Do great.
We know.
Oh, and then Goonhammer, right? Let me talk about Goonhammer real quick.
Yes, please. And let me say before you go into this, I want to tell you, like, I actually find the Necromunda articles on Goonhammer incredibly helpful. As we were going to that first campaign that I was playing, I had no idea what I was doing, and I read your guys' article on Goliath, and then I was chatting with Campbell about it a lot, and he was giving me some good advice. And I think that was where I learned about smoke grenades in particular. And so, like, the first time we started breaking out a game, and I'm like, I throw a smoke grenade here, and I throw a smoke grenade there, and people are like, wait a minute, what? And I was like, yes.
Yeah. So I've written a lot of articles about Necromunda on Goonhammer.com. I haven't written many recently, just because don't have a ton of bandwidth these days. Back when I used to work in an office, I work from home now mostly because of the pandemic. But back when I used to work in an office, I would write a lot because writing in a Word document looks a lot like working to the bosses. So I don't get to write as much anymore. But we have a team that write in our Necromunday series. So people are still covering the game, but that's not the only game. Of course, Goonhammer covers 40K, Blood Bowl, Kill Team, AOS, Magic the Gathering, board games, historicals. It is truly the best tabletop gaming website on the planet. I would
agree. It kind of came into the scene. You had other sites out there that were just enamored with advertisements and would break my mobile browser and stuff when I try to look at things, and also just really just
break your brain if you read the comments.
And also we're really regurgitating information that wasn't deep diving. Like, Goonhammer really is a solid freaking site. Like, it is.
The idea is long form content, right? The easiest way for most people to digest information is reading it.
Yep.
You can't always have volume up. You don't always have your headphones. You can't always be looking at a video. But if you're not driving, you can read. And most people do, right?
Yep. Some do while they're driving too.
Don't drive.
Don't get you started.
If this was Badcast, I'd be saying the opposite, but it's not.
You know what? I want to come on the Badcast and just unload.
People would be terrified.
It is very funny when people meet me in person at an event, and then I start dropping words.
He says cusses.
People are like, what? Like, oh yeah.
You might be Carl here, but you could be all CJ there.
That's right. I was in the army. I did pick up some language.
If you are interested in learning how to play Necromunda or any of the tabletop games mentioned, go to Goonhammer, check it out. The emphasis is on quality, and
super helpful. Great research.
While I don't agree with everything all of our contributors say all the time, I'll stand behind anything we post on that website. So goonhammer.com is the place to be.
Fantastic stuff. Dan, thank you again for joining. Josh, you got anything else you want to throw out there?
I was just going to say, when I was reading through this in research for this, the gang, I put a note here, just needs salt. Like, it felt like it was a little bit lacking a flavor. Just felt kind of generic and in the middle. But after listening and talking with you here, Dan, like, you've absolutely swayed me. It seems like a pretty cool gang. I absolutely appreciate what Orlock brings to not only the gang, but also the just environment, the lore, the story, how it brings the whole world to life of Necromunda. Very much to your point of outside of High Primus, like, they're doing so much out there. And, they definitely have their place. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I could sway you.
Yeah, for sure.
I really am, because the Orlocks are one of the more, I think, fun and challenging gangs to play.
Next time you pose for the cover, if you could do it shirtless, we'd all appreciate it.
You guys... okay, sure. Yes, I'll do it.
All right. On that note,
he looks like me. I didn't know. I didn't know
on that
they
note,
would put my doppelganger in the book.
We have a Facebook group that you can join. We have a Patreon.
My face is on a book. It's on this book.
You win
right here.
We have a Patreon. We have a Discord channel. What am I missing? I think that's all of it. Thank you so much for listening. And Dan, thank you again for joining us. We really do appreciate it. So until next time, we're coming to you from the Astronomicon, where I don't remember how it goes. I'm so brain fried at this point. Oh, wait, before we go to that.
In a row, you're just...
Before we go to that, actually, I did have something else. If you are in the Bay Area, please look up the Fault Line 40K guys who are operating on Thursday evenings out of the Guild House in downtown San Jose. You definitely want to check it out. If you're into narrative gaming and that kind of stuff, they're really knocking it out of the park, and it's a great group of people, and you should go check them out. So I'll leave on that note. And so, yeah.
Right on.
Let's skip it this time. Can we skip it this time?
What, the Astronomicon bit?
Yeah. Did you have something you want to say? All right, fine. Until next time, we're coming to Astronomicon where... Go ahead, Dan.
No, you start it. It's your bit. You have to do it right. Go. Right.
Well, you even have it written down in the notes.
What's that? I don't have
You have your line written down.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to preview my line to
fine,
you. What
okay.
is this?
All right, here we go.
What is this?
So this is Carl.
This is Josh.
This is Dan.
We're coming to you from the Astronomicon where an easier way to get iron would be to just take supplements. And
where mining iron comes as naturally as pumping your rivals full of lead.
And where we don't skip bits.
All right, we'll talk to you next time. This episode of The Independent Characters is protected by the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find information on the front page at theindependentcharacters.com.